How's it going, friends and saints, and shalom, and blessings to you all in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Welcome to this episode of Un-Apologetics, the show where we are unapologetic about apologetics, and I'm your host, CJ Cox. I want to go ahead and have a brief acknowledgement of everybody who is currently in the live chat. I see Kevin and Jerome M. Thank you both very much for being here. For anybody who is here, please remember to like and share this video. Please consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. Hit that bell to get notified every time that we go live. Don't really have any announcements or anything like that, but nonetheless, I appreciate you guys for doing all the stuff that you do here. Consider sharing this to the different social media platforms which you frequent, of course, and getting it out to your friends, family, fellow congregants, whoever you think might benefit from listening to some of this stuff. Like I said, no real announcements to announce at the moment. Things are kind of taking a lull right now. It's kind of just because I'm not doing a whole lot, if I'm being honest with you. It's not so much of a, I don't know what the other word would be here, but the point here is just to say that I am not really doing much of, setting debates up and interviews and stuff like that. We'll kickstart it again at some point, but, it's nice to relax every now and then. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Nonetheless, this is going to be a open mic. I titled it Challenge CJ, so I am particularly inviting those who disagree with me. Of course, if you do agree with me, you can certainly jump in. I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. It's an open mic, but nonetheless, a lot of people like to, talk a lot of things, talk a lot of that S word, you know what I'm saying? And want to see them come back it up. I don't think they will. In fact, in the case of some of them, some of the more particularly educated amongst them, I know for a fact they won't because they're cowards. But nonetheless, perhaps we can bait some of the other, adversaries, I guess you could say. I feel like I'm giving them a little bit too much credit when I say that. But nonetheless, and of course, even just people who just genuinely disagree, right? Because obviously, just because we're doing a challenge CJ stream doesn't mean that we have to pick a fight, right? We can have an actually good conversation, but I just figured I'd open up the mic for a potential fight and see if any of these cowards decide to show up. And of course, y'all know who you are, Dr. Falk, Dr. Rhodes, Smokey Saint, Praise I Am. Y'all know who you are. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and just, say some random what have yous. I don't really have anything to talk about here, to be honest with you. It's been a long time since I've been with you guys, as far as, an open room is concerned. I think, man, have I even done an open room this year? I'm not even sure, to be honest with you. Man, I'm interested now. I'm going to go look back at that. I'm fairly certain the last open room I did was at least in the month of December. But I could be wrong about that. Let's see. Yeah, I think it was the very last day of December, actually, my watch night open mic. Man, so yeah, pleasure to be with you guys again, I guess, in this particular sense. Long time no chat. I should have probably had something more to talk about here, but I guess I can address a few things. One thing I would like to address, it's kind of a football rant, but it doesn't have to do with the sport itself as much as it has to do with some ethics surrounding the sport. So I guess you guys can tune into that for a little bit. But we just recently saw, first off, a ton of massive contracts signed in the NFL. I don't know if any of you guys are football fans, but a couple wide receivers named Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams just signed contracts for over $100 and something million. Aaron Rodgers signed a $200 and something million. He's a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. He signed that massive contract. Deshaun Watson, who's a quarterback for the Texans, or was, now he's been traded to the Browns. He's now signed a $230 million contract. So a lot of massive, massive contracts being shelled out to people in the NFL. and big trades. And for those of us who are football fans, it's like everybody's just bonked their head and lost their damn mind. But the reason that I want to bring it up right now is for a couple things. Number one, the insane amount of money that these people are demanding. I just want to address really quick because I think it's somewhat of a sign of where we're at culturally, that athletes who are regardless going to be making millions of dollars to play with a ball, right? They're going to be tossing around a freaking pigskin, and they're going to be made millionaires as a result of it, and celebrities as a result of it, and have people plastering their freaking posters and stuff like that on their walls, right? They're going to get all that stuff. And no, that's not good enough. I want to be the highest paid athlete in this sport at my position ever. I demand it. Who cares if I deserve it, right? Who cares if it doesn't, bode well for my team, because now they don't have a lot of money to shell out to everyone else. Who cares if, even if I don't get that, I'm still going to be making hundreds of millions of dollars potentially, especially for these quarterbacks. Nah, that's not good enough. I've got to be the best paid guy in the entire league, in the history of the entire league, at my position. And even though it's only going to last for a total of a week and a half before some other incredibly greedy dude comes up and says, no, I need to be the highest paid guy at my position. And it's kind of disgusting to me, if I'm being honest with you. It's not like I'm opposed to people being rich, obviously. I'm a very conservative person. Some of you probably already know. It's not as if I'm sitting up here saying, athletes, so you just get paid all this millions of dollars, and I feel like that should go to me or something like that. You know what I mean? Like these liberals tend to do, where it's like they feel entitled. But it's just like, when you have the option between $60 million and $50 million, right? To me, the fact that the money for you is such a concern at that point, when you're so damn rich, and you're so damn rich to play a game. I mean, I don't know how you could possibly define greed better than that. You just have to be the highest paid guy ever, right? And now you have these players taking up 13% of their team's cap space, which is the amount of money they're allowed to spend on a team each year. All to themselves, 13%. Could you imagine if it's your job, you took up 13% of the money that they spent on labor? Do you think your manager takes up 13% of the money that's spent on labor? I'd be interested to know if the CEO of Disney even takes up 13% of their labor. I doubt it. I very, very much doubt it. But unbelievable greed in these people, that they absolutely must have this $230 million contract, because apparently $140 million wasn't enough. Apparently getting your face plastered all over television every single week for 18 weeks now, that wasn't enough. That's not enough. No. Sorry, I need extra millions because I'm just so great and dandy. I can catch a football or throw a football. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I'm not a Tom Brady fan, but one thing I will always give credit to Tom Brady for is the fact that he was content being a multimillionaire and letting other people around his team also get some of that money, because he didn't need to be the highest paid guy on the team. Same thing with Peyton Manning, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson. They didn't need to be the highest paid. But these new cats, and in the case of Aaron Rodgers, I guess he is technically an old cat, but he got that new cat mentality, right? They just got to be the highest paid guy. And to me, it's kind of a sign of where our culture is, right? We don't value loyalty to a particular team, for example, or to a business or to anything like that. It's just loyalty in general, right? We don't value success, right? Winning, or potentially being in a good fit or something like that. We don't value camaraderie. We don't value the game itself. What we value is being really freaking rich. That's what we value. Love of money is the root of all evil, right? And again, I'm not against people being rich. There are plenty of very good millionaires and very good billionaires out there. But this mentality of I just have to have more. I must be the highest paid guy in the whole history of my freaking position. It's detestable to me, if I'm being honest with you. I don't like it. I really don't like it. And it makes I don't know if any of you guys are football fans, but for me, it makes the sport difficult to watch. It makes the sport difficult to watch. Because it's like everybody on the field is a villain. I don't like them, right? I think they're bad people. And that brings me to my second reason for talking about football here, is the guys getting this money are awful human beings. Awful human beings. Tyreek Hill just became the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Tyreek Hill is a serial wife beater. Tyreek Hill beat his child to the point of breaking his arm. His child was 4, by the way. Tyreek Hill has a video on record where when his then fiance says, "Hey, your son is scared of you," he says, "Yeah, and you should be scared of me too, bitch." This man just got the largest contract for a player at his position in the history of the league, and he's garbage. He's trash. He should be in prison, not on a football field, making millions of dollars to play a game, to play a sport, something that's a privilege. And that's another thing. These guys they all talk about how they're so oppressed, but in reality, they're some of the most privileged people in the history of the world. They have more capital than monarchs in some situations. But this dude is absolutely detestable. He's awful. He is a garbage person in every actual definition of the word. And I don't use those kinds of terms lightly. But to break a 4-year-old child's arm, to tell your fiance when she's pleading with you to stop being an object of fear for your child, to say, "You should be scared of me too." Absolutely awful. Disgusting person. Vile. Trash. Absolute garbage. He's not the only one, because this Deshaun Watson character, who just got his $230 million contract, largest guaranteed contract in the history of the NFL at any position, the man has 22 sexual suits against him. Now, I'm not saying he's innocent or guilty. Nothing's been proven in a court of law, and the man does deserve innocent until proven guilty. For sure. For sure. But highest paid athlete ever in guaranteed money has 22 sexual suits against him. You're not even going to wait? Like, let stuff play out? No, we're going all in. We're going to make this dude the highest paid guy at his position in guaranteed money, or at any position in guaranteed money, ever. Ever. What kind of sense does that make? It seems to me, when I was in high school, the NFL at least attempted to hold players accountable for negative behavior. I seem to recall Ray Rice getting suspended for an entire year and never actually coming back to the NFL after he clocked his chick. I don't know. Maybe I just imagined that whole situation, but I'm pretty sure it did occur. And again, I think this is kind of a sign of where we're at as a society. It doesn't really matter anymore that people beat up their women, that people beat up their children, that people potentially sexually assault women. That's not really what we're interested in. Can you throw a football nice and spirally like? That's really what we're interested in. And I don't know. I got to be honest. Like, I never thought that I would be seeing signs of the times in the NFL free agent market. You know what I mean? But here we are. I mean, I don't understand it. I don't understand why society is okay with this. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. We are the same society that was totally cool with simulated lesbian pornography at the Oscars and a strip show at Super Bowl, whatever it was in 2020 with the Chiefs and 49ers. So I really shouldn't be that shocked, right? Like, this is par for the course. But it's just another sign of where we're at. Another sign of where we're at. And it's annoying to me. It's annoying. Again, it's not that I'm against people getting second chances. I was quite a fan of Michael Vick when he got out of prison. Want to know why? Because he changed. He was a different person and he paid his dues, right? He didn't sit up there and try to make excuses or lie about what he did. He went to prison, he paid his dues, and he came out a different person. I'm also not against people being rich. There are plenty of millionaires and billionaires out there who are great people who earned their money honestly and without greed and without stomping on people, right? So it's not like I'm trying to criticize these guys because they're athletes or because they're rich or because they're getting opportunities after having made egregious mistakes, even evil mistakes. But it's not like these people are repentant in the case of Tyreek Hill, in the case of Deshaun Watson. And it's not like they're earning their money in a truly honest fashion. They're just sitting there and demanding, I must, me, be the highest paid person here. Again, does your boss take up 13% of your income or of your company's income? Whoever the highest guy is, does he take up 13%? I doubt it. I doubt it. But these players are so sure of themselves. They are so greedy. It's just, I don't know. But whatever. Rant done. Wanted to go on a football rant. Didn't know where to go on that rant. So you know, I didn't really have much to talk about here, so I decided to go on it here. By the way, guys, link to enter into the show is currently pinned if you're interested. Can bring any topic that you want, obviously. But yeah, no, I can't stand these players. I cannot stand these players. I cannot stand this league. I cannot stand this modern world we're in, this infatuation with money, this complete ignoral of terrible, terrible behavior, allowing just the worst of people to get a platform and be influential to millions of young boys and girls, and indeed adults as well, right? Let's be honest. And you know, I don't know. I don't know how long the American society has when we're endorsing this kind of filth. And bear in mind too, the NFL did used to be a relatively wholesome league, right? The NFL was the league that was like 80% evangelical Christian. The NFL was the league that cracked down hard on even the smallest infractions to the point of where people were like, man, you guys are rough. You get caught smoking weed, you can get suspended for an entire season. See Ricky Williams. Granted, it was his third time, but still. Pot. They used to take pot that seriously. Now, we're not taking breaking little children's arms seriously enough to even suspend a guy 6 games. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I think that it's a sign that our society is completely and totally fallen, utterly useless. There's nothing good about it. I don't know. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. But at any rate, another thing I guess I can talk about here while we're waiting to see if anybody wants to show up. This character, Dr. Falk. Man, I love this guy. I love this guy. So, Dr. Falk originally took issue with my saying God has ordained evil. He took the Smoky Saint Praise I Am position that apparently I'm some heretical, fatalist, stupid person who doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. And he decided to quote the Westminster Confession as a way of making his quote point. So then I read the entire portion of the Westminster Confession because he was, of course, quote mining. Interestingly enough, when I decided to post the portion that he did not actually reference, he accused me of quote mining. But nonetheless, I guess that's just how it works, right? And now, apparently, the issue is not my use of the word ordain, but what I think the word ordain means. See, there's no problem with saying God ordained evil from Dr. Falk's perspective, even though for actual, like a month, maybe 2. I was going to say weeks, but I guess technically it could be months. That was the issue. The issue was that I had a traditional Calvinist interpretation. God has ordained all things, every single one of them, right? But now that I've actually exposed Dr. Falk as being literally incompetent, being a theological fraud, and by the way, I must correct the record. I guess he does have a degree in divinity, which is a theological degree, right? And I said that he did not have any theology degrees. So, correct the record. I'll eat crow where I have to eat crow. However, I think that actually makes this problem worse, because this man spent thousands of dollars to get shown up by a kid who dropped out of high school. That's pretty embarrassing, if I do say so myself. Like, that's rough. That's real rough. Says, to say God ordained evil is not even close to Reformed theology. And he quotes the Westminster Confession. I quote the portion of the Westminster Confession that is literally directly before what he quoted, which says God has ordained whatsoever comes to pass. And now it's not the fact that I use the word ordained. Now it's what I think the word ordained means, which is decreed, by the way. And if you guys see my most recent episode before this, actually, no, it would be 2 episodes before this, because I just did the Portum episode. The funny thing about that is I actually demonstrated on that episode that Dr. Falk was wrong about the changing definition of ordained. We looked at an etymology dictionary that revealed to us ever since the year 1300, it's had the definition that it currently has. And of course, Dr. Falk, because he's a coward, has just decided he's going to run away and flee. His best argument against me is something that I actively brag about, so I don't know why he thinks it's an argument against me, but the fact that I'm a high school dropout. And I got to be honest with you, I think it's kind of hysterical, because this guy literally paid thousands of dollars to get himself a degree and accreditation, only to be exposed as a theological fraud by some dude who makes videos in his closet. Yeah, I know my martyrdom game is on point here. But honestly, right? Like, it's got to be embarrassing to him. You know what I mean? There's got to be a massive shot to the ego. And it only gets worse, because he not only refuses to address any of the points I make in any sort of honest fashion, but he won't address the points that anybody makes in any sort of honest fashion. Like, let's say that Dr. Falk just thought, well, this is just some kid on YouTube. He's not worth my time. It's totally right. In fact, he's probably right about that. But he won't even respond to people like in a legitimate way, at least in a face-to-face kind of way, like David Roll, who is one of the most well-known Egyptologists probably in the world, probably a lot more well-known than he is. Now, he would say that's illegitimately through, clever media, savviness and stuff like that. But that's not really the point as far as what I'm saying, right? The point is that he's an incredibly popular person, and Dr. Falk is super content with addressing him in a mocking and belittling fashion, far away on his own computer. But when it comes to actually having a conversation betwixt the two, oh no, I'll only debate PhDs. And then a PhD atheist, Kip Davis, he decides he's going to challenge him. Well, no, I just don't do debates. Okay, well, before it was you wouldn't debate people who didn't have PhDs. Now it's that you apparently won't debate at all. I'm starting to think you're just a coward, frankly. You're just not capable of defending any of the nonsense that you claim. And by the way, we're going to do some videos on Dr. Falk's actual area of expertise. I've been wanting to do them for quite some time, but I don't know. I just kind of haven't got to it. I don't know why. But Dr. Falk is a late date proponent, right? He believes that the Exodus took place sometime around the 1200s BC in the Ramesside period. I don't know if he actually goes as far as saying under the reign of Ramses the Great, but I'm pretty sure that he does. I'll have to kind of refresh myself, because I haven't been watching a lot of his videos, probably 4 or 5 months at least. But he believes that late date, argument, the kind of thing you see in the 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston, or the Prince of Egypt DreamWorks movie, which I'm not saying that to insult it, by the way, just to give you an understanding, right? Although I'm sure that Dr. Falk would probably, have issues with the historical representation of those movies. The point is just to say that's the popular Hollywood choice, right? Is And you can see why. It's thematic to have Moses versus the greatest builder in the history of of Egypt, probably the greatest king in the history of Egypt, although that's disputable. Um, some would say he was one of the greatest military minds. I think that's very disputable, especially when one considers Thutmose III. Um, but nonetheless, he's certainly a very popular person. He's certainly a person that is, well, it makes sense from a movie perspective, is what I'm trying to say, right? Um, Nobody wants to see Rocky Balboa take on some scrub 98 ranked in boxing, right? They want to see him take on Apollo Creed. So that's kind of, why I think Hollywood really likes the late date. Dr. Falk, of course, has his own reasons, and I want to do some videos addressing that. But just really quickly, just very briefly, I just want to point out that in order to take the late date, which, to be fair, the late date would be a Exodus that happened. It would imply an existent Moses. There's a lot of historicity that would be confirmed in the Bible if the late date turned out to be true. Unfortunately, that historicity would be roughly analogous to the historicity one can find in the Iliad. In other words, it would be something where, this text is very clearly embellished. It's mythological. There's a lot of things that just didn't happen here, but it does tell a generally accurate historical story, sort of. And I say generally accurate historical story, sort of, because most people who would talk about the Iliad and the Trojan War would be quick to point out that basically all of the personal details there are things that are at best unconfirmed, and most of them would probably say just didn't happen. I'm sure most people, for example, don't believe Achilles actually existed, even though most people would definitely believe that the Trojan War did happen. And so the Bible becomes a text kind of like that if the late date is true. Why is that the case? Well, because the Bible explicitly, in multiple different passages, says that this event, this Exodus, took place sometime in the 1400s BC, right? Now, again, if you are just arguing for strict historicity, then using evidence that comes from the late date is not necessarily a problem per se, right? Like I said, the fact that Troy existed, the fact that it was destroyed in the manner which is described in the Iliad, the fact that Mycenae existed, the fact that there appears to have been a rivalry between these two. Some people even think we have references to certain characters from, quote, Troy, like Paris and stuff like that. All of these details do confirm that the Iliad is historical in a sense. Notice I say in a sense, right? It's not like it's not a piece of history. But that's kind of my point also, is it's not a piece of history, right? Just because it is a narrative based on what likely occurred, that doesn't mean what happened in the narrative explicitly occurred. I hope I'm making sense to you guys, because my point here is just to say, what Dr. Falk concludes here ultimately would relegate the Bible to that position. The Bible cannot be trusted to give its own chronological details. It's wrong in multiple instances. For example, when it says that the Temple of Solomon was completed in the 480th year, see 1 Kings, 480th year since the Exodus, that's just not true, according to Dr. Falk. Now, Dr. Falk has his apologetic for that. They're idealized numbers and blah, 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 right? And we'll obviously do videos explicitly going through those. But the fact of the matter is, it says in the 480th year after the Exodus, and that is not true. That's the conclusion that he's reaching. Why? Well, because 480 years after the Exodus 480 years before the building of this temple would end up putting us in the mid-15th century BC, the 1400s. Just like all of the other fundamentalists believe, because we take the Bible seriously, right? That's not the only portion, by the way. There's also areas, and I believe Chronicles, which say 19 generations separated, I believe, David from the Exodus. Well, 19 generations, a generation is between 20 and 25 years. That puts you in the 15th century BC, of course. You have in the book of Judges, I can't remember his name off the top of my head for some reason, but the character who ends up burning uh, his daughter, right? Because he made the hasty vow to the Lord, if you give me victory, I'll burn whatever comes out of my house first to you. And Jephthah, that's his name, Jephthah, my apologies. He says roughly 300 years separate his position in time from the Exodus when they had first gotten here, right? All right, so that's 300 years. What do scholars generally consider that time frame to have been? About the 1100s. Do your math. 300 added to your 1100, that's 1400s. That's the 15th century. The Bible seems pretty clear as to when this event took place. But according to Dr. Falk, that's not true. According to Dr. Falk, it actually took place some 200 years after that, in the Ramesside period in the 1200s, 13th century BC. And we're supposed to rejoice because he's demonstrating the historicity of an Exodus. But I don't think anybody who believes in Greco-Roman paganism is rejoicing when somebody demonstrates historicity found in the Iliad, because they recognize that historicity is not something that validates any of the different claims about gods and about, Achilles being dipped in the river Styx and stuff like that. In fact, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite, right? When we actually find out the details of what happened in history, we can see the fictional elements quite clearly. And if it turns out that the Exodus took place in the Ramesside period, at least some of the fictional elements that we find in the Bible is its chronology. The numbers just are wrong. It's literally that simple. And it's interesting, people will, try to make claims about, well, first off, there's some people who would probably criticize me because I have also argued from a point of view of general historicity. For example, if you go back to my debate between me and Jonathan Sheffield versus Drs. Josh Bowen and Maggie Bryson, I had said I'm not here to defend things like a specific date or the numbers, right? Rather just the historicity of Moses, right? And so some might say, okay, well, aren't you being a little bit hypocritical then if you're willing to defend that in a debate, but would criticize Dr. Falk for his conclusions here? And not so, my friends. And let me tell you why. Number one, a debate with a very specific topic, right, it is meant to address that specific topic alone. So if Dr. Falk was having a debate with a Moses mythicist, right, and he was saying, hey, I think there is very solid evidence for an Exodus occurring, an Exodus specifically of Hebrews, for the existence of a Moses character, all that other kind of stuff. But I'm not here to defend certain dates. That's a different conversation, right? That would be one thing. Because notice at that point, he's not doing anything to invalidate what the Bible said. He's just simply said, I'm not defending it at this particular point in time, right? That's not what this conversation's for. We can have that conversation at another point in time, but right now the conversation is, did Moses exist? Did an Exodus happen? Something along those lines, right? That would be one thing. But if you start making conclusions that are actually invalidating what the Bible says, well, now we have a problem, right? Now we have an issue. Now if we're starting to say things like, well, I think this took place 200 years after it's actually said, and that's my actual opinion, right? Or I think that the numbers in the Bible are just flat out wrong, exaggerated, idealized, something like that, right? I don't think that there actually was a crossing of the Red Sea, or that it was supernatural, or what have you, right? You start voicing those kinds of opinions, the kinds of opinions that invalidate Scripture. Now we have a problem, right? Notice the first time in that hypothetical where Dr. Falk's in a debate, all he's doing is saying that's not a conversation for now. But the second point, which is what Dr. Falk is actually doing, is saying, no, I think the Bible actually gets these details wrong. I think that our knowledge that we get from studying archaeology, from studying history, from going to secular academia, and learning from a bunch of people who have active stake in taking the Scripture down, I'd just like to point that out. I think that information, can lead us to conclude the Bible is wrong about these details, which is funny because a lot of people would obviously conclude the exact opposite, right? For example, somebody like David Rohl, who's not even a Christian, and also, of course, Bryant Wood, who is a Christian, Doug Petrovich, who is a Christian, many others. They would all say that the Bible's details are actually accurate and demonstrated by the archaeological record, by what we see in history. But no, not Dr. Falk. Dr. Falk invalidates it to not a myth. He's doing better than Israel Finkelstein, for example, right? But a text that is certainly legendary, a text that cannot be trusted to give an accurate historical representation of what happened. And I don't know, for some reason people don't think that's a problem. By the way, I'd like to point out, Brother Kevin is exactly right. 36 minutes, nobody decides to show up, which is fine. I'm perfectly content to be with all you guys. I think the height we've gotten here so far is about 14 live viewers. So actually a little bit more than I've had recently, because I've been posting stuff so late that only 8 or 9 people have been showing up. But nonetheless, I appreciate hanging out with you guys and y'all listening to my little rants here. But that is exactly right. I offer a challenge CJ here, have it up for about 24 hours. Nobody shows up. That's because in the end, these guys aren't serious, right? They're not serious. They don't have any actual, intent to have honest conversation. They have intent to insult. They have intent to pontificate. They have intent to sit up there and wave around, in the case of Dr. Falk, oh, I'm educated, and good for you, buddy, you're educated. And I, by the literal definition, am not. I'm a high school dropout, and yet somehow managed to expose you as an absolute fraud. And I'm going to continue to do so, by the way. I'm going to continue to do so. It's going to be a topic that we're going into, is why the late date is wrong, why the early date is right. And I'm going to probably get David Rollback on here also, because I believe he just published a book. I'm going to read the book first, but we were talking once, on my most recent interview with him about doing an interview about his book that was coming out. And I believe it is now out, but I could be wrong about that. Nonetheless, absolutely love David Roll. He's a great guy. One of the better people I've actually had on here to interview, and I've had quite a bit of really cool people on here, to be honest with you. So I don't think that is some light praise. Actually, one of the people I get along with best who I interview on here, well, obviously there's Michael, the Canadian Atheist, right? I think you guys all know that, which is interesting, right? Because he is politically progressive. He is an atheist religiously. We couldn't be more fundamentally opposed, and yet I tend to actually get along with him very well. And we have productive conversations too, which is, I think, even more important than getting along with someone. I would even go as far as to consider him a friend, or whatever you can actually, I don't know. I guess when you've never met somebody, that word comes with an asterisk. But whatever it counts for when we do these different conversations. And Hugh Ross is another one who I completely disagree with, right? But he's an absolute joy to talk to. I like Godless Engineer too. I like a lot of the guys I disagree with, to be honest with you. And I tend to think that's probably why they come back, is because they can kind of tell, I'm not going to give you any ground. Like, I fundamentally disagree, and we're adversaries as far as the intellectual sphere is concerned. But nonetheless, I'm going to treat you with respect and dignity, and I quite enjoy, speaking with a lot of y'all. Now, that's not to say that I haven't had good conversations with people I agree with too. Anthony Rogers is an absolute joy. And he's hilarious too, actually. I definitely really like Anthony Rogers. And let's see, who else? To be honest with you, I don't interview a lot of people who I do agree with. David Roll was great. David Roll was absolutely great. Love talking to him. Man, I'm just drawing a blank right now. I'm not drawing a blank on all the people who I disagree with who I've had on the show, like Skylar Fiction and Randall Rouser, right? But I know that I've had a little bit more people on here. I've had Kent Hovind on. Actually, Kent Hovind's pretty cool. Kent Hovind's kind of an interesting guy because he's like super to the point. So it's like, it's not that it's like unfriendly. In fact, he's actually quite friendly, but he's I don't know how you would even describe it, right? It's just like, we're here to talk about a thing, and let's talk about the thing real quick, and not all the other sort of, you know, I don't know what you would call it. What do people call that? Niceties, right? When you're just talking about the weather and stuff like that, all that good noise. But no, he's definitely a cool guy. Definitely a cool guy. I haven't talked to Ken Hogan in actually quite a long time. All right, let me pull through here just a list. And on this now. Oh, Chris Date, obviously. Obviously. I've had like 4 interviews with Chris Date. Chris is super cool. Phil Fox. Phil Fox is a really cool guy. Bruce Gore is also a very cool guy. Rob Rowe is a very cool guy. Had Smokey Sane on this channel, unfortunately. Yeah, a lot of cool people. Pastor Jesse Smith is a really cool one. Yeah, Bon. Unfortunately, you're not 100% wrong. I think as far as his assault charge, it appears to me that was wrong. I think the courts ended up finding him not guilty, and we actually listened to the audio of him on this channel. And to be honest with you, it appeared to me like he was the person being attacked and not the other way around, and that this ex-wife of his is just kind of emotionally unstable. And I say that with respect, but it just seemed to be, what was happening. And when he went to appeals court, it turned out that they thought the same, so he didn't end up ever actually, having any sort of a legal problem with that. However, I will say, and I've said on this channel before, I have become very disheartened with the extreme laxity that Ken Hogan treats marriage with, and that's obviously that's his personal business. I won't say anything more on it than I've said in the past, but it does bother me, if I'm being honest with you. And I do wish that it would bother other people, certainly, because it is one of those things where, I mean, I'll just be honest with you. It's disqualifying from the perspective of ministry, not necessarily apologetics, obviously, because I don't consider those to be the same thing. But I would have liked to have seen Kent kind of step away for a moment and have some thoughtful prayer and repentance. I'm not saying forever, right? But man, 4 marriages since 2015, like that's rough. If Joel Osteen did that, we would all have a serious problem, right? But when Kent Hovind does it for some reason, and by the way, keep in mind, guys, I love Kent Hovind. I just told you how I think he's a great guy as far as like speaking to and all that kind of stuff. He is the reason I do apologetics. He's the guy who inspired me to actually start doing apologetics. And he'll always be the person who gave that to me, right? He'll always be a great influence on my life. He'll always be kind of the person who cracked open the young earth creation, nut, if you will. Great influence to guys like Standing for Truth, and so on. And those are all great things. And another great thing is that our Lord is a very forgiving, very merciful God. And Kent Hovind, if he is truly a brother, and I do believe he is, he is forgiven for all the things that have happened. But man, I can't help but thinking, if it was Joel Osteen, if it was Kenny Rhodes, if it was, one of these Christian actors like Chris Pratt or something like that, if it was one of those guys, I feel like we'd feel a little differently about it. But since it's one of our own, we kind of keep it hush. And I don't like that. I really don't like that. It's a little disheartening, if I'm being honest. But nonetheless, I've addressed that in a whole video. I don't want to make this a, trash on Kent Hovind video, because like I said, I've gone over my thoughts on Hogan's whole situation before. And that's all I got to say on it, right? That's all I got to say on it. Well, it doesn't look like any of the people who want to challenge CJ are going to come in. So if any of y'all who wants, excuse me, man, I just totally swallowed my tongue. If any of you who are, just wanting to have a conversation, want to come in and not necessarily quote challenge, feel free to do so. I mean, you are already free to jump in. However, if you were maybe waiting to see if one of these guys would show up, can certainly go ahead and not wait any longer. And of course, if you don't want to, you don't have to either. We can just switch the title of this to CJ Rants for a minute and move on with our lives, because that's basically all this was going to be anyways, right? It's not like I had a topic for you guys or something planned or anything. I'll be honest, I'm pretty thankful that my babbling can keep 11 to 15 of you guys interested for 45 minutes. Because yeah, I'm really not saying much of anything right now. So appreciate you guys for sure. But yeah, link is pinned if anybody wants to join. If not, we'll probably end this here pretty soon and just change the title to CJ Rants for a minute about football and Dr. Falk or something. I don't know. I am going to go ahead and grab myself some coffee real quick. So while I do that, well, yeah, we'll play like a hymn or something. Actually, never mind. I'm tired of getting copyright strikes. So I'll be right back. All right, we're back. And see if we got anything interesting here in the live chat. Got a couple people I haven't acknowledged: Janet and Alec Cox and Jono and Bond. Although I have actually acknowledged you, I just haven't said hi. Brandon, blessed be he. Shalom to you all. Thank you for being here. I don't know what Jono is doing here, but it's kind of funny. Anyways, shalom to you all, and thank you for being here. What to rant about? Probably nothing. I might just go ahead and shut this one down for today. Super disappointed, wink. I'm just kidding. It's funny because you'll see people, they'll sit there and they're, oh yeah, you're scared, you're so terrified, all this other kind of stuff, and then they won't show up, right? And of course, like I said to start this, always knew they weren't going to anyways. But then they'll turn back around and say, "Oh yeah, we'll see. You had this challenge Tuesday. Nobody showed up, and nobody takes you seriously, even though they're actively doing the video on it." And also, there's at least consistent double-digit audience. Are you willing to do a stream or just talk now a bit about your scriptural guidelines used when deciding who to call brother? Obviously, there's a lot of division here on YouTube about OSAS. That is a good question, Miss Janet. Man, that could be a whole stream. That could be me. That could be me picking a fight, though, if I'm being honest with you. Because, which, I'm still dealing with the repercussions of the last fight I picked as far as coming out as a Calvinist, right? Man. But perhaps it's something I can say a little bit right now, and perhaps I should do a video on this at some point. So first things first, I have a pretty strict guideline as far as what I'll call heretical, what puts you outside of the camp, right? If the Bible does not explicitly tell me that something puts you outside of the camp, then I'm not going to do so, right? The Bible explicitly tells me a lot of things put you outside the camp. For example, if you don't accept Jesus Christ as fully divine, as Yehovah in the flesh, then we do not follow the same faith. If you are not one who believes in the exclusivity of Christ, you must accept Christ and submit to him as Lord in order to be saved, then obviously we're not in the same camp, right? If you were to say that Jesus, of course, isn't even Messiah or prophet at all, those things would put you outside. So, it's not as open as some people might think. I do get accused of being open sometimes because there are certain things which other people are very quick to say is damnable that I wouldn't, right? For example, I don't think that modalism is something that puts you outside of the camp. There's nothing in Scripture which says explicitly in any fashion that you must understand the Godhead to be saved, or that you must affirm three co-eternal persons to be saved. Now, the Bible does say that you must affirm that Jesus Christ is Yehovah. And so if you're somebody who's like an Arian or a subordinationist or something along those lines, yeah, that puts you outside of the camp. But if you're a modalist or a semi-Arian or a Trinitarian, those are all three different explanations of what they see in the Scripture, as far as I'm concerned. That doesn't mean they're all right, obviously. In fact, the only one can be right. Right? I mean, there's no way all three of them could be correct. It's just they're mutually exclusive. But as far as whether or not I can say a oneness Pentecostal is my brother, right? Pastor Tony Spell, who's fighting the good fight for Christianity down in Louisiana, can I call him my brother? Yeah, I think I can. And I'm not ashamed of that, frankly. I think it's hilarious that people find that to be such an offensive position, and yet when I ask them, show me from the Scripture where it says you must understand the Godhead to be saved, nobody can do it. In fact, what I've gotten many times from a lot of people, I've gotten from James White, well, the progression of church history, which is ironic considering he's Reformed. I've gotten from Smokey Saint, it doesn't have to be explicitly laid out in Scripture, which is ironic because he claims to be a Protestant, sola scriptura and all that. Sam Shamoon has obviously gone all the way down the Orthodox, the Orthodox rabbit trail, right? So he, believes in the authority of the councils and church fathers and all that other kind of stuff, right? But nobody's ever been able to demonstrate from Scripture that you must understand the Godhead to be saved. A lot of people think they can with 1 John 2, but it's just simply not accurate. And I've refuted it probably tens of times at least. And every time I do, to be honest with you, people just get mad at me. Like they're not actually able to deal with the arguments that I'm presenting. And another one with that is the whole Sabbatarian thing. If somebody thinks that it is good to follow the Sabbath, if somebody thinks that God's commands, we think it's good not to commit adultery, and we think it's good not to take the Lord's name in vain, and we think it's good not to commit incest or cross-dress, right? But some guy from an SDA church says, well, I also think it's good to keep the Sabbath, and he's a heretic. That doesn't make any sense for me. That makes absolutely no sense at all. Now, obviously, there are other areas that could be concerning for an SDA, but as I've pointed out numerous times on this channel, the vast majority of people who attend SDA churches are simply people who wish to worship on a Saturday. It's literally that simple. Most of them are not concerned with Ellen G. White as a prophet. Most of them are not concerned with, the whole progressive revelation thing. That doesn't mean that those things are excusable. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying there's nuance in these situations, right? The overwhelming majority of SDA practitioners are literally evangelical Christians who go to church on Saturday morning instead. And I think that I'm not willing to put that person outside of the camp because he wants to worship on the Sabbath. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Especially when you consider the historical context of this question wasn't even a question until the SDA showed up. And what I mean by that is everybody thought that you had to honor the Sabbath. They just thought it was Sunday. They said it was the Lord's Day. And then the SDA came out and said, no, actually the biblical Sabbath is Saturday. And then it became a problem. Now all of a sudden Sabbath observance was making you a Judaizer or something. I don't know. And that's just the straight up historical facts. Like there used to be, they called them blue laws. There used to be laws in this country where you literally could not have businesses open on Sundays because it was considered a Sabbath day for the Lord. And then the SDA show up and say, actually, it's Saturday. And now all of the sudden, that's just tossed out the window. No, actually, if you decide to keep the Sabbath, that means that you're a Judaizer. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. I'm not willing to put that person outside of the camp because he says that he wants to go to church on Saturday. Now, if he's going to put me outside of the camp because I don't necessarily worship on Saturday, obviously now we have a different problem, right? But nonetheless, the reason people would say, like, for example, Smokey has called me a pluralist in the past is because of things like that. I'm not somebody who is super dogmatic on issues that I don't think the scripture clearly kicks someone out of the camp for, right? That doesn't mean that I'm welcoming the Catholic, Jehovah's Witness, Orthodox, Mormon, Islam, or Muslim, all that other kind of stuff, right? So that's the first kind of major guideline I would say. If the Bible is explicitly telling me this person's outside of the camp, which of course applies to anybody who doesn't accept Christ, that's all your Buddhists, that's all your Hindus, that's all your Sikhs. It also applies to anybody who doesn't believe that Jesus is fully God, right? Which would be, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons. It doesn't apply to anybody who adds to the gospel and says you must believe this in order to be saved. So that's most of your denominations. So that's why I refuse to be denominational, right? That's definitely the Catholics. You have to be under the auspices of the Catholic Church in order to be saved. And of course, they have tons of other issues, right? But regardless, I digress. That would be one of the major concerns for me. So now to get specific with the OSAS issue, I think the OSAS issue is complicated, right? Because the logical implications of denying eternal security, if you followed them, would put you outside of the camp. I want to make that clear because this is in my opinion a very concerning issue. If you truly did believe everything that is implied by your denial of eternal security, which I don't think that most of the people who deny OSAS do. And that's why I think this gets complicated, but I'll get there in a moment. If you truly believed all of the implications of the denial of eternal security, I think you would be a heretic. If I'm just being honest and throwing it all out on the table, right? Because in order for one to believe that you can lose your salvation, by definition, one has to believe that you can do something. There's some work that can get you to be outside of the camp. And that, of course, implies that there's some work that got you inside the camp to begin with, right? And that's a big problem. Also, it kind of calls into question a lot of scripture. For example, when the Bible says, he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. Well, if you can lose your salvation, that's kind of implying that people are they're thwarting that. They're thwarting the Lord, right? They're saying, no, actually, as it turns out, he won't bring it to completion necessarily. You can kind of create a problem for him, right? And so those things, I think, if you followed the implications to where they lead, I think it would make you a heretic. Now, the thing is, and this is where I'm going to catch some flack from my brothers and sisters who agree with me on this. The thing is, most people who deny OSAS do not believe the logical implications of OSAS. And that is definitely something you need to consider. I can give you a perfect example as to why, and real quick, we're going to leave OSAS and talk about Martin Luther. Now, if you're in a position where you're going to start saying Martin Luther was a heretic, I guess you're entitled to that opinion. I think that it's clearer than almost anything outside of what actually was revealed in Scripture that Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation were the direct hand of God. I don't mean to say that Martin Luther was a prophet or anything like that, but I definitely think that he had a destiny about him given from on high. You see what I'm saying? Martin Luther believed some things that, if you take them to their logical conclusions, would put him outside of the camp. I'm going to say that again because people don't like to hear it. Martin Luther believed some things that, if you took them to their logical conclusions, would put you outside of the camp. For example, Martin Luther believed in consubstantiation or transubstantiation, one of the two. But nonetheless, that the literal body and blood of Christ was found in the wafer and the wine, right? And that essentially there was a new sacrifice. Now that he doesn't, this is the logical implications that he doesn't take it to, but this is the kind of things that Protestants have pointed out for the last 500 years since, that there is a new sacrifice being presented before the Lord every time you take communion. That is a problem. That's not a once and for all sacrifice on the part of our Lord Jesus Christ. That implies that there is a certain amount of things that you could do, and if you do them before you confess or have some sort of a mass or something like that, right, that you are now outside of the camp. But Martin Luther didn't take it to its logical conclusions, and so Martin Luther was not somebody who you could definitively call a heretic. But he did believe that doctrine. I'll give you another one. Martin Luther believed a whole bunch of Mariology, a whole bunch of it, including but not limited to her perpetual virginity, which is a direct denial of what the Scripture says on the matter. He believed she was immaculate. Tell me that the implications, tell me if you took the logical implications of Mary's immaculateness, I don't think that's a word, but nonetheless, to its logical conclusions. Take that to its logical conclusions, right? Pretty sure I just used a pretty redundant statement, but nonetheless. That puts you outside the camp, doesn't it? Because you're essentially saying, if you believe another human being is immaculate, meaning without sin or error, you're basically saying another human being was God. That person didn't actually need the sacrifice of Christ. Martin Luther did believe that. But, again, he didn't think it all the way through. He didn't take it to its logical conclusions. And by the way, J&W just made an excellent point. Martin Luther also thought that killing Jews was a good idea. And not just Jews, by the way, but also Anabaptists and other Christians that he disagreed with. What's my point? Not to trash Martin Luther, who I think is, like I said, absolutely somebody who had the hand of God, as far as on his work. But actually, my point is the exact opposite. You're going to accept Martin Luther, but you're going to say, hey, this person has denied OSAS in my presence, and therefore they're not a Christian. I got a problem with that. I'm sorry, but I do. I haven't been talking about it a lot because I don't want to start fights, but I have a problem with that. You can't, out of one end of your mouth, support people like Martin Luther, John MacArthur, Douglas Wilson, C.S. Lewis. They all got flaws. I got flaws. We all got flaws, right? You can't say these guys' flaws, even though if you took them to their logical implications, they would be heresy. But those flaws are cool. They're okay. But these ones over here, even though they also don't take it to its logical implications, they're not okay. I'm sorry. I'm not on board. I'm just not. That doesn't mean that any of these people are wrong, right? And it doesn't even mean their zealousness is necessarily misplaced. I think that God sends people to have certain ministries, right? Sends people to have certain works to be done. Obviously the concept of destiny itself is probably not explicitly biblical, but it's certainly, the general idea is there. God has tasks for everybody. We're not necessarily always aware. In fact, I think most of the times we're probably not aware of what those tasks are. Probably won't know until we're on the other side of the eschaton, right? However, for some of those people, I think there's value in the person who sits there and is kind of a hawk, right? And is pointing out, look, there's a lot of problems, and we need to look out for those problems, and we need to be wary of those problems, and we need to be zealous to squash those problems. And so I'm not here to criticize anybody who has been zealous on this issue for eternal security. However, to fail to see the diciness of this issue, because you got to be real certain that somebody is not a Christian. You got to be real certain that something is not. And let me tell you why really quickly, because people will say, well, no, I don't think you have to be that certain or anything like that. If it's error, right? Wrong. 100% wrong. I take you to the Galatians, right? What was the Galatian heresy? The Galatian heresy was the addition of circumcision to the gospel, right? Friends, where does circumcision come from? It came from God. God commanded the Israelites to be circumcised. And Paul said, get this now, Paul said that to add a command from God to the gospel, and thus putting those who are outside of following that command from God outside of the tent, that was anathema. I want you to consider that for a moment. God said that to add a command from Scripture to the gospel was anathema. So what's the point? The point is you better be real careful when you are adding or subtracting from that gospel. Real careful. Because, I'll tell you what, the circumcision issue is a heck of a lot more straightforward than the eternal security one is. God literally said it. Like, you know what I mean? This is, I think we need to approach these issues with a very serious sense of humility. I think we need to approach these issues realizing that people can affirm things without affirming all of the different implications of things. I think we need to go about this understanding that these issues are difficult. For example, a lot of the people who think they get it don't. And a lot of the people who do get it fail to realize that not everybody else does. I don't know. I've stepped on some toes, I guarantee it. In fact, I kind of feel like to some of my good brothers, I might be getting a response. But if any of you guys do feel that you need to respond to what I've said, know that I'm not against you, right? This isn't my coming out party to say, oh, X, Y, and Z are terrible and they need to quit what they're doing, because I don't believe that. I just think that, perhaps there are two prongs to this particular pitchfork, so to speak. Perhaps there is a good cop, bad cop. Perhaps it is necessary for there to be some zealousness on some, in the part of some parties, as well as some leniency on the part of other parties. I mean, you can just see this in the scripture, right? James is a hard ass, and Paul is not, right? But they're both apostles, and they both wrote scripture, right? And we're not even close to that. But James is talking about the law and talking about how you got to live righteous, and faith without works is dead. And he's rough around the edges for sure. And Paul is very sweet and very affectionate and willing to forgive so much, and all this other kind. And they're both equally valid teachers of Scripture. In fact, they're both equally valid writers of Scripture, without contradiction, even, right? So I think these issues need to be approached with a little bit more grace. I'm certain I'm guilty of that at some point, not having the proper amount of grace. So, I'm not even necessarily judging people for that. It's all complicated. It's a complicated thing. I'll tell you what, though, you should, if somebody is claiming the name of Christ, even if you're certain that they are heretics, you should go into the conversation expecting to share eternity with these people, right? Why do I say that? Well, because you might. It's pretty possible. And by the way, Jesus actually explicitly said, those who are kind and loving and give gifts to those who they love, well, who cares? The sinners do that. It's those who you don't love. It's those who are your enemies. It's those who, etc. That's when your true Christian love actually shows up, right? It's easy as pie for me to sit up here and have great love for David Roll, who I agree with, or Anthony Rogers, who I agree with. Much more noteworthy, in my opinion, is when I've come up here and had great conversations and relationships with Michael, the Canadian Atheist, and Hugh Ross. That's, if there is any Christian love in me to be demonstrated, that's where it was demonstrated, in my personal opinion. And obviously, that doesn't mean that you become, soft. That doesn't mean that you stop preaching or teaching or whatever your position happens to be. I'm an apologist. I don't head a church. I'm not a clergyman, right? But whatever it is that you are doing, you certainly don't weaken yourself, water down yourself, for being nice. That's not what I'm saying. But, if you're getting to a point where you're arrogant, where you're dismissive, where you're unempathetic, where you see somebody as an actual foe, not just a foe on this particular battlefield, but a foe as in, I'd like to see that person defeated, I think that's a problem. And by the way, anybody who thinks I'm stepping on their toes here, there's no accusation going around here. I don't have anybody in particular in mind. I'm just kind of ranting. You know what I mean? Kind of just giving my opinions on something I was asked about here. But nonetheless, that's. I hope that was a good enough answer for you, Janet. I may do a whole episode on that at some point. I know that I want to do an episode on the September 11th birthday thing, because as you guys know, I believe Jesus was born on December 25th. I want to do a couple episodes on Dr. Falk and the late date. I do want to do a review of Dr. Falk's recent interview with inspiring philosophy. I'm going to hold off on that for a minute, only because I recently asked IP if he would be interested in a debate with me, and the guy's incredibly busy, obviously, right? Um, he's an incredibly popular person, right? And he very respectfully and kindly didn't have to address me at all, but he did, and he said, I'm just right now, I just don't have any time for that sort of thing, right? And obviously that of course that's totally is right. I appreciate him even taking the time to respond to me, but as a result, I kind of want to push that video idea off because I don't want him to think I'm like, oh well, you didn't respond to me, and so now I'm going to go after your video. You know what I mean? That's so um I might do that a couple months down the road, just for optics. You know what I mean? But yeah, I want to get some of that done. Um, I want to do a review of American Underdog. Um, which is a great movie, by the way. I just gotta say that. I don't know if you guys are into sports at all, but um, that is a great movie. Timothy, I'm not sure what you're referring to when you say I do now, thanks to you, CJ. Um, Whatever it is, I'm glad that I. Oh, and by the way, I'm not sure if you're definitely not blocked. I can see what you're saying. Um, we are joined now by our first guest. Actually, how's it going?
Hello, hello. How's it going?
Oh, not bad at all. Not bad at all. I say really quick. I just want to say, Timothy just showed me what he was talking about. He does now believe that Jesus was born on December 25th. Thanks to me. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that I'm
Nice.
convincing him.
Very good.
Yeah, that's actually one of the areas me and you would agree on, isn't it?
I think so. Yes, definitely. I haven't seen a bunch of your material to competently be educated on the issue, but I would say, as an ignorant person, I would say definitely Jesus was born on December 25th.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. Actually, it's kind of an interesting thing because um, about 2016 time, I was like the complete opposite. Like Christmas is pagan, and you shouldn't even celebrate it. And fast forward 6 years, and now I'm like, actually, I think Jesus was probably born on December 25th.
Yeah, no, how would I say this? I at some point I was kind of this quasi understanding that like Easter and Christmas are pagan, and then I guess I grew up, for lack of a better word, and I just realized that you know what, I'm actually just not going to give liberal atheists any more inches that they've already taken. So every inch of Christianity is worth spilling blood over. So yes.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. I don't know if you've ever watched any because I do a little series here this year on holidays, going through the history of uh, the Jewish holidays as well as the universal Christian holidays, which are so named because you may or may not know they're all pre-Nicene. There's actually seven pre-Nicene Christian holidays, um, and they're Epiphany, Candlemas, Christmas, Easter, Halloween, Pentecost, and Ascension.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, so I've been doing a series here. I'm going through those seven, and then the Jewish holidays. So all five mosaics plus Purim and Hanukkah. And then I decided to add Thanksgiving on there as well because, as far as I'm concerned, Thanksgiving is a Christian holiday. I think if you look at the history, that's certainly the case. It's American specific for sure, but I think that I mean you just think of the name, right? Who are you giving thanks to? Um, but yeah, if you're interested, I've actually been doing a
Yeah.
series on.
Oh no, I am well aware that Thanksgiving is a Christian holiday. I've been aware of it because it was first done it was first done between the Indians and the Pilgrims when the Pilgrims first came over.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? It's another one of those things where it's just like the name Thanksgiving. You think of the Pilgrims. Well, the Pilgrims. Well, what does the word pilgrim even mean, right? It's a religious word talking about a religious group, and
Right.
it
And,
really should have been obvious.
what's really interesting though is it was actually I'm not going to say it was the first, but actually it was the it was the first recorded mass that was actually done on United States soil, because the Indians that they were kind of supping with, these were actually these were like the Native Americans that had already been converted by Spanish missionaries that came through the region already. In fact, the one that taught them how to kind of raise corn and kind of how to understand the Native American agriculture. Squanto was actually a convert to Catholicism at the time.
That's interesting. I didn't actually know that. That it does make it a
Yeah,
somewhat interesting event then, because the Pilgrims are all um, they're Reformed Calvinists, so you'd have Reformed
very much,
Calvinists and
and
Catholic
yeah, I know,
natives.
and rabidly anti-Catholic, I know, but
Yeah,
uh, when it comes to when your gut starts meeting your backbone, I guess you start making compromise, don't you?
no kidding, no kidding at all. Um, yeah, and the whole Thanksgiving story too. It's I think it also kind of there's a lot of inspiration that I've found in it. In fact, one of the biggest things I think that I've found with it personally is if you've ever heard of King Philip's War. So it's a war between the a confederation of Native American tribes um, and the English settlers. And the guy leading the confederation was Metacomet, who went by the name King Philip. And it was actually the son of the chief who was at the Thanksgiving feast. And he took the name King Philip because there was a time in his younger life when he believed, as a result of that Thanksgiving feast, that all of their differences could be squashed and white and red could come together and be as they were. And of course, eventually that went down the path of King Philip's War. But the thing that I've always kind of seen, from that is, in a sense, there's almost a sense in which um, that war is kind of blood spilled for the idea of peace on this continent between the two of us. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, I know what you mean. Just real quick, CJ, I'm kind of joining with my laptop so I can get off on my phone.
for
Just
sure.
give me a minute here. Yeah, keep talking. I'm just getting my PC lined up.
Yeah. Well, and real quick, actually, I want to go ahead and address this here.
Oh my
This is
God, that's
not
so
good.
stupid. Thank you. I was about to
Um,
do it myself. That's so stupid. I'm sorry, Alec, but please, that is brain rot. Honestly, honest to God.
yeah, it's that is a idea that is less than 100 years old and is a very popular example of what we would call the etymological fallacy. Um, so,
There you go.
ooh, my bad. Did I take out the whole?
There you go.
Cool. Um, so yeah, the first off, let me explain the etymological fallacy just real quick. It's a fallacy when you take two words from different languages that sound similar and conclude they must mean the same thing or have a common etymological origin. So a perfect example of this is the word El, right? El, if you are speaking Hebrew, means God. El, if you are speaking Spanish, means the. And El, if you are speaking English, is a letter. Um, or it could be a name, right? ELLE.
Yeah,
Um,
but sorry, CJ, you first.
well, it's just to briefly say, so the Easter Ishtar similarity, right, is actually something that is following the same sort of a pattern where it's taking two words that sound similar, and so people are concluding, well, therefore they must actually be the same. And there's a
No.
couple other issues with it. The first and most major issue is if you look at each of these words in their original language, they actually don't really sound very similar at all. So if you take the Germanic word, Istron, that is what we get Easter from. Notice it doesn't end in an or an R. It ends in an RUN sound. And of course, they roll their R's. So it's Istran. It's believed to derive either from a goddess or a month. We say either because nobody's 100% certain that this goddess actually existed. It could be just something that the Venerable Bede mistakenly made up, because of course, people can get details wrong. But it's the same word that we get east from, actually, and it's meant to describe the dawn. As far as because the sun rises in the east, right? And so they would say that in this month you would have the dawn, because it was the spring month, right? Of all of the different plants and animals and all that other sort of stuff, right? And so it's just this word that was used to describe rising, particularly of the sun.
Exactly.
Ishtar's original.
And
Sorry, say again?
actually, as the region became more Christianized, what ended up happening is that the holiday Passover, right, just became associated with that word. So while Alec might be right that the word itself has some pagan origin, it's certainly not Babylonian, it's Germanic. And although the word itself has pagan origin, the holiday itself is thoroughly Christian.
No, you know who
Yes,
Semiramis is, right?
yes.
You know who Semiramis was? That's
Yes,
who
I know.
Ishtar was.
I know who she was.
So she's worshipped as many different goddesses. Diana, all the Greek gods, all the Roman gods that have the female, like Diana. She was the god of fortresses, things like that. So Semiramis, which was Cush's wife, right? And then Cush died, and she married her son. She married her son. Well, because Cush was the one that developed Babylon.
Well, how do you know that?
Ancient Babylonian texts. Have you not researched those?
There's
a lot of entomology that goes into it, but there's been new findings as well that show that the egg was a symbol as zero, Zoroastrianism. So that's where it came from, was the egg, because the egg is it's a fertility worship, because Semiramis was the goddess of all life under Babylonian. And what?
I want to say this real quick. Cush is not found in the Babylonian literature. He's a biblical figure,
under
right?
Nimrod,
one of the sons of Noah. Babylon had no conception of Babylon had no conception of Cush as much as they had no conception of Noah.
Oh, really?
So I don't know where you're getting that from.
Oh, there's many different proofs and evidences that they knew who Noah was. There's actually transcripts. There's actually transcripts of Nimrod on little tiny clay tablets that they found just recently, within the last 10 years.
Okay, can you provide those?
In what we know as Babylon today, when they go through all the ancient findings of ancient Babylon. Just like they found the Gilgamesh and they found all that, they find all these other things. We're talking little, minute, little clay tablets that they wrote on, and there were letters that were sent from Nimrod.
Alec, hold on. Who made these discoveries? Because we know who discovered
archaeologists.
Well, yeah, who? Because we know who discovered the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Well, I can give you all the stuff. If you want. I can email it to you. It's not a big tragedy.
I'll just put.
But the fact is that, so if you look in Acts, I forget which chapter it is, where it talks that James was put to death with the sword at the time. Peter was put into prison, and he wished that he would execute him after Easter. Okay, but Easter fell after Passover that year. Okay, so Passover was a week before yet.
Sorry,
it is very accurate.
No, that's not accurate.
Very accurate, because the Feast of Unleavened Bread.
Hang on. Okay, because what you're going off of right now is actually a mistranslation on the part of the King James. Every other Bible in existence, demonstrates that is the Passover, whether it's the Geneva Bible, the Tyndale Bible, the Bishop's Bible, New King James Bible.
He was not killed on Passover because they were waiting to Easter, which was well after Passover that year. I'm sorry?
Easter didn't even exist yet.
Oh, it did certainly exist under the Ishtar.
No,
Yes.
that's not
All
true.
pagan religions. Oh, you can find it so easy. Just Google it, man.
I have, trust me, I believe me, I have Googled it far more than you have. I promise
Oh
you.
no,
And
you haven't. Listen, Brad, I've been doing this for 30 years. Okay, I
I
understand.
highly doubt
What are
that.
your credentials if you've been doing it for 30 years?
Just layman. Okay, I talked to a
Okay,
lot
so
of pastors and a
give me
lot
a
of people that
source
are
here
well
real
into
quick.
it. But
And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's just not true. So give me a source here real quick. Firsthand, I don't want anything from
okay,
like 1900s,
you
2000s.
could
Give me an
also
actual
a,
ancient
a
source to
very
demonstrate
easy
the holiday.
source, the Tale of Two Babylons. Okay, by
Oh
Alexander
my
Okay, hang on,
Macdonald.
hang on.
God,
I
I
just
knew
said,
it.
Listen,
I
I
just
but
said,
knew
listen,
it.
but listen. Have you researched his actual his footnotes? They're accurate.
yeah, but
That's
hang
how
on.
they're
I
used.
just
They're
said
very
that I
accurate.
wanted a direct source,
Listen, okay,
right?
hold on, CJ. CJ, hold on.
Well, yeah,
I
you can
understand.
get those.
Listen,
You can get
Alec,
those
Alec,
through. What?
Alec. I
What?
understand that Alexander Pigslop is good at forming sources and forming citations as a way of proving his arguments. I
Oh, they
understand
were
he's
all
good. I
legit.
understand he's good at kind of manipulating them. But actual scholarship today universally has essentially completely disregarded two Babylons.
Of course.
Alexander
Why wouldn't
Hislop,
they?
the world over, is an embarrassment today.
Not at all.
Okay. Do you have anybody that is more contemporary with us?
Well, I'm just telling you,
Hang on,
that's
no,
one
because
source that you can
I
actually
want
go
something.
through his sources, and his sources are very accurate. So I don't know where you get this academia stuff that was all a myth, but they've been doing research in Babylon since the 1800s.
Well, exactly. They might have been somewhat semi kind of accurate for the time, but today our understanding of Babylon and just ancient Near East in general is far more nuanced understanding, more academic than it was
All
then, and we've
right.
come
So
to very, very different conclusions from what Hislop came to.
what's the first civilization that's mentioned in Genesis 11?
First civilizations mentioned Genesis 11, I think indirectly is Hammurabi's code.
Yeah,
So
and guess who
Untitled
Hammurabi was?
Babylon.
There you go. There's your Cush. There's Hammurabi. They changed the language because if you recall, they're all of one language, but they can't decipher whatever language that was. And then the languages were confounded by God because of the Tower of Babel. Everybody was, going into paganism at the time because they were mixing the gospel, which was given in Genesis 3. They were mixing that with paganism.
What's the gospel in Genesis 3?
That the seed of the woman would crush with his heel the head of the serpent.
That's the
That's
gospel? Really?
Well,
Oh
hang on, so
yeah,
really quick,
it's Jesus
let's pause
Christ.
this for a moment.
You've never heard that.
That's
Hang on, guys,
very,
because I don't want
very,
to
You've never heard
far
that.
off. There's,
no.
I want to
Okay, I
specifically
would
So
say
who's
address
the
that
seed of the woman?
I would say that might be a foreshadowing of the gospel, not the gospel itself.
It's the
hang on,
first
hang on for
mention
just
of
a
the
second,
gospel.
because
Yes, it
this
is.
is a different talk. We're getting off right onto
Well,
the
you wanted to
gospels.
debate the whole
I know,
Ishtar
but hang
Easter
on,
thing,
because
and I know I'm right.
I want to make a very. I'm trying to ask you for a very specific thing. I want
Yeah.
a source from the BC period, not something written in the 1800s. Do you have
Yeah,
anything?
I don't have it. I don't have it with me. I don't have it with me. I'm on my phone, but I can get it to you, DJ. I'll just send it to you. Not a problem.
Because I'd be very interested to see. And by the way,
Yeah.
I don't mean to be rude, but I do happen to know the source doesn't exist. I'm
So
baiting you.
let me ask you this:
But
Why does Passover fall on Nisan 14th? And that is what the Jewish holiday is. It will be actually. This is the first year in a while that it will be Friday to Sunday. Sunday is the Feast of First Fruits. That's the day Jesus Christ resurrected. And then you have the Feast of Unleavened Bread after that, which lasts another 7 days.
I mean,
Or I'm sorry, after Passover. First Fruits is the beginning of Unleavened Bread. Yeah.
It's on Nisan 14th because that's the day that the Passover occurred back during the Exodus. It's not
Right.
like there's no.
So it's done lunarly as the the model of the calendar under Israel was the lunar calendar, and everything was transformed into the sun calendar as the sun god, which would be Mars or whoever they wanted to call
That's not accurate.
sun god.
I'm sorry, that's not accurate. The reason that people have, in fact, the Jewish calendar itself is lunisolar. It's not lunar. If it was lunar, then you would lose 11 days every year and you'd start celebrating your Passover in the winter. That's not how it works. What happens
No, they add a few. They add a few months to it. Some years it was 10 months, and
7
then
times
it's
every 19 years,
30
you have
days.
what's known as a leap year, right? And in
But it
those
was
leap
30
years, you
days.
give yourself
Yeah,
the second month.
it's still accurate because
Right,
this year
but
right
you're
now,
you're
and
missing the point, Alec. You're
I'm not
completely
missing
missing
the
the
point.
point. The point, yes, you are. The point is it's solar. It has solar elements. So to say that we use a lunar solar calendar, and so that's us worshiping the sun god, that's hilarious. They use the lunar solar calendar.
Well, you know the days of the week when they were produced, the actual days, Monday through Sunday.
Hang on. Why are you talking about the days of the week when we're talking specifically about Easter and
I
all these
understand,
other
but
days?
this is how Sunday was the first day of the week, right? Last day of the week was Sabbath, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so the apostles worshipped on the first day of the week. They all met on the first day of the week, which was Sunday, which was resurrection day of Jesus Christ.
Okay, yes.
Point
Yes.
being, how does this
Point
relate to
being,
Easter?
the names of the weeks did not come until Emperor Constantine.
No, actually,
Give
that
me any
happened
source
much
that
later.
says that
Thursday?
Constantine.
Yes,
Gregorian
because of the
calendar.
Roman Empire.
Hold on. Hang on,
Yes.
Alex, you got to.
You're
My friend,
lacking a lot of history,
I'm really not trying to be rude here.
I
But
know
just
this
think
is
of
your
what you
channel
said.
and all that, but
Constantine. You just said Constantine, right? And believe me,
Right.
I'm not trying to be like rude or dismissive here, but you just said Constantine. First off,
Yep.
there is no source that I guarantee you, no source on the planet that's contemporary to Constantine that would say anything even close to he named the days. However, you just
I
said
didn't say he did.
day
It wasn't
Constantine.
him that did it. I said it was done under
Either way,
reign of
it's
Constantine.
not true though. It doesn't happen, right? And you just
So when do we
proved
get
it.
the days of the week?
You
What year?
literally just demonstrated in your own response why that's not true. Why would a Greco-Roman pagan give
Right?
Thor, a Germanic god,
Because
Thursday? That doesn't make any sense.
do
Why
you know
do
how
those
big the Holy Roman Empire extended to, all the way to the tip
It
of
did
Great
not
Britain?
extend to the Germanic lands.
They-
The Germanic lands
Yes,
were
it
very
did.
specifically unconquered. That's not true.
Oh, I didn't say they were
No,
I'll
unconquered,
pull
but
up.
they wanted
I
to
can pull up
appease
a map
them.
for you right
Alex,
now.
DJ is right here.
Jeez. The only
No,
country
he's
they did
absolutely
not
right,
conquer.
because in Germania, the tribes were, and again, there are actual sources to this. You have legionaries writing about this. You have emperors writing about this. That in Germania, the tribes there were so disconnected and had such independent forms of government, the Romans could not actually find a way to govern them, and so essentially just through an act of attrition, the Germania basically gained its
But
independence from Rome.
what's a better way to get all the Scandinavian gods, involved in that, right? So you have Scandinavian gods, you have Thor.
Sure. Yeah. Listen, I understand
Which
this.
all that
The
is just
people
a
of Gaul,
replication of Zeus and everything
Alec,
else.
listen, the people of Gaul worship the same gods as the Germanians, so no doubt incorporating their theologies into the pantheon of Rome would have
Right.
definitely been a benefit.
So
to them.
the only actual place that Rome could not conquer was why they put up the Hadrian's Wall. What country is that now?
Today we know it is Scotland,
Germania,
but that was for the
they did
that was
not
for
have
the
We know it
Germania.
is Scotland. We know it is Scotland.
well
Yeah,
back
I'm
then it
showing
was
you
known
the
as the
map
land
on
of
the
Pitt.
screen right now. They did not have Germania. They did not have Denmark. They didn't. Okay, hang on. I forgot that I had my whole screen shared instead of just a tab. My bad.
They
They didn't
traveled. They
have
had all of
Norway.
Great Britain.
They
That's why
had some of Britain for
Philip
sure.
traveled to Great
They
Britain.
had the lower portion of Britain, but they don't have all of Britain. You just said they don't have Scotland. Scotland's part of
They
Britain.
could not get Scotland, but that's why they built the Hadrian's Wall, because those freaks of my ancestry, the Scottish, were barbarians, and they just freaking ruined any type of invasion by the Romans coming through. And you got to remember, they're thousands of miles away from any type of source of help that would take months to get up there versus years, even by ship at the time. So yeah, I'm pretty accurate, because when you visit your home country,
No.
you get this.
Okay, hold on. Here's the thing, Alec, you're somewhat correct here, just a little bit. Essentially, I know the days of the week were not adopted by Constantine. However, the 7-day week was adopted by Constantine for the whole empire, because before Constantine, the Romans were on a 10-day week. After his rise ascent to the throne.
And then how did
he
they get their
adopted
names?
7-day week.
Follow the Google thing, and how they get their names.
They are named after different deities that were worshipped throughout the empire.
Correct. Under Constantine, who was ruling at
Actually,
that
no.
time
The
until he
days were
was
probably
conquered.
established way before Constantine, I would say.
No, they
He
were
just
not.
made the 7-day week.
Yeah. Okay. So what were the other 3 days called?
I have no idea. Probably other gods, maybe. Most likely, even.
Ta-da! Jeez, just put
Okay,
two and two
your
together,
point.
man. It's not that difficult.
Your point. I'm
My point
genuinely
is
confused.
that they incorporated the other gods just like the Catholic Church does with Mary worship and all the other fun stuff they do. But you
Where
don't
do they
think that
get these
happened?
guys, TJ? I'm genuinely confused. No,
Yeah, I
no,
went
it's
to a
not.
Catholic high school for 4 years, and
Oh,
3 of
you
those
went to
years I won
Catholic
the
high school
religion
for 4
award
years. You're
at a
absolutely
Catholic
an
high
expert on
school,
the faith,
and I'm
man.
not Catholic.
Oh, I know you are.
I
And
was
it
only
shows.
one of
It
two. I
definitely
was only
shows.
I was one of only 2 Protestants that went to Catholic school, and yeah, so me and Father Wes Iser used to debate a lot, and he was a Byzantine, which he really didn't follow Roman Catholic, but the Roman Catholics are total destruction.
Okay,
Their
when
whole
you say
worst
Byzantine,
religion.
do you mean like Byzantine Orthodox or Byzantine Catholic? Because if he's Byzantine Catholic, he does follow Catholicism.
Well, if you take the Roman out of it and you just do Catholic, Catholic means universal.
Okay, well, you didn't answer the
That's the
question, so
etymology of
I
Catholic.
imagine you don't know the answer to that. So
Byzantine
he was
Orthodox.
possibly Byzantine Orthodox or Byzantine Catholic, and either
Byzantine
way,
Orthodox, and he
oh,
left
Byzantine Orthodox. Well, yeah, he
he left St.
obviously
John
wasn't
Bosco,
Catholic
and
then.
he went to became the vicar of a church in Arizona where he passed away. I was in contact with
Nice.
him. Yeah, but yeah, he was not. Because I would raise my hand. First question I asked in religion class was, "How come there's no Old Testament saints? No Saint Moses Church? No, it's all, they on Peter. This rock will be, and all this stuff on this rock, the church will be formed."
Well,
That's
that's a good question actually, and the answer that I've kind of come to is actually because like more in the New Covenant, the emphasis is more on the revelation of Christ, and therefore for the saints under Christ are the ones that get more of are the ones that get our favor more due to being in the realm of the New Covenant.
Yeah, but as going to a Catholic school and knowing a lot of Catholics, they don't mention Christ a lot. They mention Mary a lot with the Hail Mary.
Okay, but
They
hang
do the
on,
Our
you
Father
got
only
to
for
a point
penance.
though. I don't want to get off onto this other stuff because I'm trying to
Yeah,
address.
but the point is that
so
you have tons and tons of evidence that comes out of Babylon during the time of right after the fall of Babylon, or Babel, if you will, Tower of Babel, and then you have the dispersion. But some people, not all people, left Babel. Not everybody left Babel.
So there's a couple things that I want to go ahead and point out here. So first thing, we have already pointed out how you were attributing Anglo-Saxon names to a Roman emperor, which doesn't really make any sense.
It makes
the
sense
other thing,
because
though,
they
I'd like to
had
point
that
out
territory.
really quick. Hang on, no, they didn't. They literally, I just demonstrated to you, they did not have
Ireland and Britain were not Anglo-Saxon.
They didn't have Ireland. But no, at that time, no.
They had Ireland. Yes, they had Ireland. They didn't have Scotland.
Ireland wasn't Saxon.
Stop.
Ireland is not a Saxon country. It's a different.
Yeah, and
they got sacked all the time.
And England was not Anglo-Saxon at that time. The Anglo-Saxons conquered England from the Romans, who had originally taken it from Celtic peoples. That's the history of that land. I'm sorry, you just simply do not know what you're talking about.
I do know what I'm talking about.
Germany,
and that's the funny part. I mean, you're standing on this whole thing.
Stop it. Let me speak. Okay? I just demonstrated to you that the Germanic country where the Anglo-Saxons actually lived at that time did not have their land conquered by the Roman government at any point in time, right? And it was the Anglo-Saxons who took Britain from the Romans. In fact, this is the King Arthur story. You may not be aware of it, but in the 400s to 500s, depending on when he may have lived, if he did live, because some people don't think he existed.
He was an ex-Roman. Yeah, okay.
It was a Roman emperor or a Roman general, who was defending the island in the 400s and 500s. That's 100 plus years after Constantine has died, defending it from Anglo-Saxon invasion because they weren't from there. Right?
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that, but the days of the week were already named.
Simply not accurate.
But the days of the week were already named.
Do you know what they were named in Roman?
I'm sorry?
Do you
The
know
days
what
of the
the
week?
names
Yeah.
were at that time? The Roman names. What the
Sunday,
Romans would call them.
Moon Day, Tuesday,
Nope.
which is
Incorrect.
Mother's Day, which is
Incorrect.
what?
No,
Sunday and Moon Day.
why
Yeah,
that's
Monday.
incorrect? Because they didn't use
worship
those
the moon.
words. They didn't
They
use
worship the
those
moon.
words.
That's so amazing.
What? You
The
don't
only
have
one you can actually get is
Wednesday.
Bethany,
When
right?
I don't know
So
them off the top of my head, you dope. I'm just saying that. Hey, so you have Wednesday, which was the queen of whatever it was. I can't remember her name, but it comes out to Tuesday, and then Wednesday is Woden's Day. Thursday is Thor's Day.
Okay.
Then you have
Tuesday is
Frigga
March.
Day,
Oh, right, definitely.
and then you have
March, the
Frigga
god of
Day,
war.
which is Friday. Frigga. Then you have Saturn Day. Saturn, god of war.
That's oh my goodness. That's not even close to true. All right.
It's
So
not?
first off, Martis is what they call Tuesday. Martis is from Mars, who's the actual god of war.
Well, that's
not
it.
Saturn.
All right, I got confused. Whoopie do.
Then we got Mercury. That was Wednesday. Jovis was Thursday.
Wednesday is
Veneris,
Woden's day as well. Was he not the god of war as well? Woden?
you're mixing completely different mythologies. That's
No,
the point.
it's
here.
all combined.
Greco-Roman mythology
All
and the
combined.
Teutonic mythology are not the same.
It's all combined.
No, they're not.
You-
That's just false. There is no scholar on the entire planet who would take that seriously.
Oh, so okay. So you're gonna take all the history classes and stuff I took in college and just kind of like pack it away. Okay, fine.
I promise you, Alec. I'm sorry. I don't believe you. I think you're lying to me right now because there is no history class that taught you that. I promise you.
Oh yeah, they do.
Hey, Alec,
No,
I got a question. Are you legitimate or are you just a troll? I need to
Don't
know
be an
these things.
asshole.
No, I'm genuinely concerned at this point. Are you genuine or
Well,
genuinely a troll?
I think you think you're superior in knowledge, but you're not. No, that's why I joined this.
Well, honestly, when it comes to you, Alec, it's not exactly hard. Okay, I don't need.
Well,
to be
you quote me
in
some
knowledge to a
sources
lot
where
of
you
people to be
say that
superior to
Babylon
you.
was not that everybody left Babel. Did everybody leave Babel? Quote me sources that says everybody left Babel.
Let's remember what we're actually here to discuss, right? Because you had brought up Easter, right?
So yes, and that's where it all starts.
Yeah, and it's not
Babel.
where it all starts.
It all starts Babel. True. Babel. It all starts Babel.
Give me a single.
Does it
I
not?
want one source. Give me one contemporary source that demonstrates that they were celebrating Easter in the pre-BC in the BC period. I want one, and I want it to be from that time. I don't want the Tale of Two Babylons. Give me a contemporary source that shows.
The source would be just ancient Babylonian texts.
Which ancient Babylonian?
I don't have the freaking. I don't have it right now. Jeez, what do you think? I just show up with my Rolodex of crap? Come on! I didn't know you were going to get into this stupidity, not knowing that Ishtar is Easter.
You can look it up as we speak.
Okay, listen.
I do it all the time. I literally find sources mid-conversation all of the time.
Alec, when you show up here and you say things, we're going to hold your feet to the fire. I'm sorry.
Of course, it's your channel.
Either you have it or you don't.
I would do the same thing if you came to my channel. But the fact is that I don't have the access right now. I could go offline and Google it and come back, but that's a waste of time. Fact is, I can do it at a later date. It's very simple. They actually have found just within the last 10 years, like I told you, they're about like a 4x5 card, but they're letters actually written from Nimrod to somebody who lives on a hill somewhere, right? Basically,
somebody who lives
berating
on a hill somewhere. That's great.
Yeah, that would be Noah, Mount of Ararat, because they didn't really leave Mount of Ararat. The children did.
So, good question. Do you actually know what the original name of Easter was? Because this is another big issue with your whole theory. Is that Easter actually wasn't even originally called Easter? Do you know what it was originally called? I'll give you a hint. It's still called this in every Orthodox church on the planet.
Well, as far as what it was called Easter before that, I'll stick by the translation from the Babylonian tablets, which came out of the egg. Okay, that's why there's eggs. That's what it's a fertility. It's a fertility. Why the bunny? Why the bunny with the eggs?
Hang on.
Why the bunny with the eggs?
I can actually explain that, but just a moment. So, and I promise you, I'm saying this respectfully, but you just demonstrated sheer ignorance. Okay,
I did not.
Yes, you can't tell. So in every single Orthodox church on the planet, you know what they'll call it? You ever heard Paschal before?
Yeah,
Pascha.
okay. That Pascal was. Oh God,
Pascha is
that's
what they originally
1800s.
called.
Oh my
Pascha is
God,
what they originally called
that's where
Easter. It's
Pascha
what the
came
Greek
from. That's
Orthodox.
a Tyndale. That's a Tyndale translation, right?
And that's
No,
what was
that's
Pascha.
called in the
literally
Yeah.
East,
the
Alec.
Okay.
word that
Yeah.
they
All
used
right.
to
Now I know
call.
where you're going with, but that was a
No,
mistranslation for
you don't know
Passover,
where I'm
and
going with
everybody's
this
proven
because
that.
that demonstrates that this can't
No.
possibly be the case. Because when
Oh,
they were
100%.
originally celebrating it, and for the
What?
first
Just because
800
something was
years,
changed
hang
in
on,
the 18th
Alex, will
century?
you stop, please? I let you speak, and this is my channel. You don't let me speak. I
I
find that to be
understand.
problematic. Okay, just stop for a second. What is being demonstrated here is, since you seem to be ignorant of the fact that everybody on the planet called this holiday Pascha for the first 800 years of its existence. So you're saying that this holiday that is apparently Easter is related to Ishtar, but when they're talking about Ishtar, that's back in the 600s BC. When they have this holiday, that's in the 1st century AD. And then when they finally start calling it Easter, that's in the 9th century AD. 800 years after they started celebrating this holiday, and 1,500 years after people stopped using the name Ishtar, and then you want to make the claim that this is somehow related.
All right. So what year did Koine Greek become the world language?
Well, it would have taken some time, but they conquered Persia in, I think, 330 BC.
Yeah, Koine Greek
Daniel's
became the world
prophecy.
language like even before Christ's times.
Oh yeah.
And then with the subsequent conquest of the Romans, in another 300-400 years, the lingua franca became Latin.
Well, that was okay. That's why they
Hey,
spoke Greek
also,
in
hey,
most of
another
the
thing.
other
Do you know
areas.
who Ishtar is? Because Ishtar is actually in the Greek pantheon. Do you know who she is?
It's it's actually Diana and what's the other one? There's 5 different
Nope.
names.
It's
There's 5
Aphrodite.
different names. Yeah,
It is
Aphrodite, which
Aphrodite.
is
It's not
also
Diana.
Diana. It's the different personas of the original, which all follow from Semiramis from Babylon.
No, they all follow from Inanna. See, the sources you have are
Well,
so
that's even
wildly incorrect.
okay.
It's not even
Nana,
funny.
Nana,
Inanna
but
is the
still, the
original. Okay?
Semiramis is the one that's
No,
actually.
hang on, because you can't just say no every time I demonstrate that you just don't
Yeah.
have the facts incorrect. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I've dealt with these people
Inanna
that
is
believe
the
in
original
Anarchy
Sumerian
and
goddess.
Anunnaki and all this stuff. Yeah, and they came here. Angels came from another planet to get the gold from Earth and all this other crap. Yeah, I've dealt with those people.
No, I don't believe that at all, but I don't know where you're
Well, that's
going
what the
with this
Masons
anyway.
believe.
So hang on. So it's Inanna is the original goddess here, not this Semiramis character. Inanna becomes numerous different goddesses, like Astarte, for example, which you've heard in the Bible probably, and then Ishtar. From there, the goddess becomes Aphrodite, not Diana. Diana is a completely different goddess. And then from there becomes Venus.
But
And
you're
the thing that
skipping
makes that incredibly
Semiramis,
interesting,
which
do you know what her
Inanna
day? Do you know
became
what her day was?
Semiramis.
Do you know what her day was?
Inanna
It was Friday.
became Semiramis.
It's not Sunday. It's Friday. It's not
No,
Thursday. It's Friday.
Frigga's day.
Right, Freya's day. On Freya's day, another god was worshipped. Alec, how do you respond
It's
to
the
that?
same goddess.
No, it's not.
All the
Shit.
same. Yes, it
How
is.
do you come to
Just
that
because they have,
conclusion?
it's different personalities. So, okay, have you had the same job all your life? Did you work as a fry cook and then or a car washer or
Not
something?
the same thing, Alec.
Did?
It is not the same thing.
It
here.
is. Oh,
It
yeah.
is not. I
Nations
dare
change
you.
it
I
into
dare
that.
you,
God,
Alec. I know you
you're so
haven't done this.
misunderstanding, dude.
Actually, look at like Hellenist.
How many names does
mythology.
Beelzebub have?
When you look
How
at
many names does Satan have?
mythology between Rome and Greece, right, and then compare that to Norse, it is a night and day difference. Different theologies, different gods, different names. These are not the
So you
same
don't believe
gods.
that everybody
Now, they
left
might have been
Babel?
incorporated under the same pantheon, Alec, but these are not the same gods. In the same way, when you look at Norse mythology, Greek mythology, and compare that with Near Eastern mythology, it's
They
not
all
the
come
same
from the
thing.
same source.
These are very different people, very
They
different gods,
all come from the
very
same
different
source, and they're
theologies. And when
imaginary.
you compare all these and compare it to like the theologies of the Far East, it's basically the distance between Earth and Mars. Okay? You do not know what you're talking about, Alec. You
I
just want to
do.
pretend that you do.
Comparative religions is a freaking passion of mine. Come on, bro. Get out of here. It's like it's unbelievable that
People
you
that
that
Why
you
is it that you
follow.
get so many of these
comparative
details
religions
wrong
don't
then?
use the term bro.
Like, for
Okay?
example, you just said Aphrodite and Diana were the same, but that's not true.
They
Aphrodite.
They're different names,
no.
but they're the
Diana is
same
the Roman
actual
equivalent
person.
of Artemis, not the Roman
Just
equivalent of
because they have
Aphrodite. The
different
Roman equivalent of
functions.
Aphrodite is Venus.
Okay, how many names of God are there?
No, they're not. That's not the same thing. They're different gods.
How many names of Yahweh are there? El Shaddai.
Not the
You got
same
all
thing.
these, but they're the same
That is
person,
not
right?
the same thing. Artemis
Yes,
and
it is.
Aphrodite have conversations with each other, dude.
Only in
they're not the
literature.
same goddesses.
Only in literature. Only in literature
Did we just kick this guy
made
already?
by men. Can you believe that you don't understand that it's the same person and they just write literature about
Oh,
things?
this is so stupid.
So
like Homer's
they don't
Iliad,
exist,
things like
but they're
that.
the same person in real life and not in the literature which invented
They're
them.
the
That doesn't
same
make any
God
sense.
with different functions.
Give me one source from the time that says that.
Homer in the Iliad. There, take that.
Really? Okay, let's see. Homer in the Iliad says that Aphrodite and Artemis are the same. I am interested to see this. Let's go to our
say that.
lovely
They're different
Google.
function. But if you look at their attributes, they're very much the same person.
Really, Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, is very much the same person as Aphrodite, the goddess
of fortresses. Goddess of fortresses. Aphrodite is the love part. Diana is the goddess of fortresses, which Diana,
fertility, not fortresses. Try again,
what?
Alex. Aphrodite
No.
is the
Diana
goddess of love, fertility, and sex, not fortresses.
Come on. Yes. Also the goddess
Diana
of fortresses.
Is the goddess
That's
of the
why
hunt, wild animals, and
Aphrodite is the Aphrodite goes into the
now, if you want a
fertility.
God of fortresses, Alec, Ares is a much better pick, considering he is literally the god of war. Okay.
That has nothing to do with the god of fortresses, though. Goddess.
There is no god of fortresses in Greek.
Goddess
Greek
of fortresses.
mythology, at least not that I'm aware of. Let's find out.
Why do you think Semiramis married her son Nimrod, called Tammuz as well in the Bible? Tammuz and Nimrod are the same person. They wailed over Tammuz by the rivers of Babylon.
Okay, you're a bit wrong on this, Alex. Actually, because there was no single god of a fortress. What fortress gods were essentially a god that was dedicated literally to a fortress. That could have been anyone. That could have been Artemis. That could have been Ares. That could have been Zeus. That literally could have been anyone. And so, what's going on? For instance, Athena was a fortress god, and she was the
there you go, Athena, Athens.
And she was the goddess dedicated to Athens, and she was its fortress god. In the same way, Ares was a fortress god to Sparta. So there is no singular god of fortresses. They're all. It's basically just.
But did they not worship? Athena as well as Diana in different temples?
No, those are different.
In different temples.
Those aren't even
the same temple.
Group of people. Okay, so first
off,
to
help you guys out here. You guys are
hang on. First off, Athens and Athena, those are Greek. Diana is Roman. So if you want to talk about their equivalent, it's Artemis.
Right, okay, so there you go.
The second thing is
Diana and Artemis are the same god. Okay, different names, but the same god. In the same way that you have Aphrodite and Venus. One is a Greek name, one is a Roman name, but they're the same. But the scholarship is very closed on the idea that Artemis is Diana. Okay, Diana isn't like Athena or anything like that.
Exactly. Diana is Diana's Greek equivalent. It's not Athena. It's not Aphrodite. It's Artemis. So, and that's just, I'm sorry. That's just I don't know where you're getting the information that you're getting, but it's simply not true. Artemis is a goddess of the hunt. Artemis is a goddess of wild animals. I think she was a goddess of the wilderness also.
And also I want to say the Roman equivalent to Athena, because Alec brought it up. Her name was Minerva. Okay.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. And so you have all these different details that you're just putting up into a blender and mixing up and pretending that they can all come out and make a case, but they don't. You have people who worship a goddess Ishtar, then they're calling that goddess Aphrodite, but apparently they're still calling the holiday Easter, even though they're actually all calling it Pascha on every single one of the sources, and don't call it Easter for another 800 years, when now they're not actually calling her Aphrodite or Venus, but nothing, because they're all Christian and have been for 600 years at this point.
Okay, hold on, CJ. I'm gonna say my piece real quick because I need to take a shower and get something to eat. If you're still on, I'll come back on once I'm fish filling up my belly. But I just want to point out that people that take Alexander Pigslop seriously and the pseudo scholars like him, this is what they sound like. They just sound totally crazy. Their ideas are often very immature, imbecilic, and simply cannot even muster up to the level of a knowledgeable layperson, much less the academic they really are trying to be. Moreover, but these whole ideas that understand this, CJ, these whole ideas that the Greek and Roman gods are the same, that essentially everything goes back to Babylon, this all really just comes from an irrational hatred of the Catholic Church. There is no other reason, because without Alexander Pigslop's bigotry against the church so many years ago,
well, there's many more than
wouldn't have
just
taken
him.
this on. And so
There's
what's
many
going
more than
on
just
at the end
him.
of the day is that all of these theories, they really stem from a very irrational hatred of what they themselves don't understand. And that's all I got to say to that. And with
Are you a Roman
that, I
Catholic?
really just want to say, Alec, get an education. You
Are
will
you a
definitely
Roman Catholic?
benefit from it. I got to go get a shower and
You're a Catholic, aren't you?
Definitely. I'm very much am.
Yeah, sad. It's sad. You go.
Yeah, it's very
you go
sad.
worship
You're
Hail
so
Mary.
very ignorant about what is clearly
You
apparent in
go.
front
You
of
go
you.
venerate Mary, bro. Who's not a virgin, by the way. She had other sons and
definitely
daughters.
will, and it sticks. And don't stick to your brain rot though. Get an education.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because you're an ignorant pagan.
I love you so much. Bye.
You're just an ignorant pagan. That's okay. Catholics, man, unreal.
Well, for the record, I mean, I'm not a Catholic, and I completely agree with Fro, right?
Well, that's wrong.
What? I mean, if he says 2 + 2 equals 4, I'm not going to say that 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4.
So you agree with him venerating Mary as eternal?
No, I did not say that. It's literally.
Well, that's what Catholics believe.
Okay,
that's
I didn't
what
say
Catholics
I believe what Catholics believe.
They believe that
I agree with him. No, Alec, you're being dishonest. Okay?
I am not.
Yes, you are. You're being incredibly dishonest right now. I said that I agree with him as far as what we are talking about, which is Easter. Has nothing to do with whether or not Mary is immortal or whatever.
Is Mary the mother of all?
What does that have to do with Easter? We're talking about Easter. I don't support Catholic doctrine. I said I agree with you on Easter.
Easter is a fertility. Easter is a pagan fertility deal, whether you like it or not. It is correct. But why then the Easter bunny with eggs?
The Easter bunny with eggs actually derives from the Osterhare, which is a German, little German kids story that comes from about the 1500s.
A pagan, pagan, yeah.
No, Germany was actually Protestant Christian at that time, but that's okay. 1500.
How Christian were they? There's still pagans around, and you know that there's plenty of them.
You know, Martin Luther and the printing the printing press with whoever it was, I can't remember his name. That was all out of Germany at that time. So the
Gutenberg
of the Protestant Reformation, you're saying was pagan?
What? Well, I'm sorry.
You're saying the seat of the Protestant Reformation was pagan. I just want to make sure I'm hearing that correctly.
No, don't put words in my mouth.
You just said that Germany. You did. You said that Germany in the 1500s, which is when the Osterhare came out, was pagan. It's a kid's story.
Yeah, who wrote it?
Let's see. Actually, I could probably get that. I don't have his name off the top of my head, but I could pull it out of my notes here.
Well, there you go. So the fact is that somebody wrote it, but it's also based off of the fertility god. And then why did it get incorporated with Easter?
It's just a kid's story, to be honest with you. It's that simple.
Follow
He's just a guy
the yellow brick road, man. It's so easy. Just follow the yellow brick road.
No, because you can't say that. You can't act like you actually demonstrated some kind of a brick road here when you clearly haven't, right? I've just demonstrated.
They all come from. If you want to say Inanna, that's fine. Who then was Semiramis? If you want to say that, that's fine.
If you want to say, and then they're not the same though. They're literally completely different.
They are.
No, wait, give me a source. Give me a source.
Oh, Babylonian text. I'll get them for you. I'll bring them to you.
All right. I would love to see it. I want to see a source that says Semiramis and Inanna are the same being. I would love to see that.
Because
that's not true.
They're the same worshipped idol, if you will. Semiramis was actually real, probably under a different name. If you look at the different, after the languages were confounded into multiple languages, they couldn't understand each other. They came up with their own language, and so therefore it's like we don't, our English language is a lot of Germanic, and it's a lot of mixed with Latin, if you will, and Greek. So that's how English came to be. I mean, if you look at 1400s English, it's nothing like. That's why King James came out and he said, "All right, this is how it's going to be," and we still derived from King James English, if you will, over the period of time with slang and things like that. Latin, spawned Spanish and all other languages that were, French, which are all derivatives of people moving from one area and then getting another, calling things different things with a different accent. So you have, that Latin still around, Mexico, which came from Spain, Portuguese, and then you have the, France, and then you have other areas that still have a Latin base. The only one that's different, which was done under what's his name, Peter the Great in Russia, was he formed a totally new language. It was Russian.
All right, so I'm actually kind of curious. So you say that you're an expert here on Semiramis, or you seem to say you seem to believe
I've done a lot of study on it.
Quick question.
Done a lot of study on it.
Good question. So if Semiramis and Ishtar are the same person, then how is it that there are myths where they speak to each other?
Well, that's be a literary device. Just like how does God speak to his son here on earth? Why did Jesus pray to the Father in heaven? Why did he have to pray to the Father in heaven? Same story.
Well, so let me just ask then, because you asked that like a modalist. Are you not a Trinitarian?
Oh, I'm 100% Trinitarian. Yeah.
Okay, then those are.
And I understand it. I understand it. So if you look at it,
you answered your own question under your own worldview. Those are different persons.
And you should
Ishtar,
you should understand how Ishtar and them were speaking.
They're different persons. You think Semiramis and Ishtar are different persons? You just hang on, but you just compared them.
It's a fallacy on the Trinity, if you will, because they are different personas of the same person. That's more of the modalist view, if you want to go with that, with Semiramis and Ishtar, because they're both the same actual person, but given different names.
So you're saying that the son and the father. Okay, so you're a modalist. That's fine.
No, I'm not. I did not say that. I was talking about Semiramis.
Are they the same person or no? Are they just answer the question?
Stop putting words in my mouth. I like how you do that.
The father the same person?
I never said that. I said I'm a Trinitarian, but they have a false Trinity. Did you not know pagans have a false Trinity?
Okay, just answer the question, please. Yes or no, the Father and the Son are the same person?
They are the same person.
Okay, you're a modalist. That's literally dictionary definition modalism.
No, they're the same person. They're one being, three persons.
Okay, so they're different persons then.
Yeah, but they're the same in nature.
Okay, so then
the Father
if you're saying
is
then,
in me, and I'm in the Father.
Okay, and you're saying that Semiramis and Aphrodite, or Ishtar in this particular sense, they're comparable to that, right? So they're different persons.
They're comparable in literary because it's a false pagan trinity that they try to conform, but it's more feminine than it is masculine.
I don't understand how that has anything to do with my question. Are they different persons or are they not? Are Inanna,
different names, same person?
Are they
different names, same person?
As Semiramis.
Different names, same person.
Okay. Why do they have conversations?
Like Bob and Robert. What's that? Why did they have a conversation? I just told you it's a literary device by who was writing it.
Okay, but you just said
who wrote that conversation.
You literally just said that was like the Father and the Son, but then you concluded that the Father and the Son are different persons.
Come on, dude. So you know what I'm talking about. I believe in the Trinity.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. I genuinely do not know what you're talking about. Okay, you're claiming these people
if you open up your ears and if you'd open up your ears and learn something.
Okay, so
yes. Who wrote that Semiramis and Ishtar were talking to each other? Who wrote that?
Diodorus writes about it. I believe Plutarch probably writes about it as well.
What year? What
I know
year?
Theodorus lived. I'd have to look that up.
Yeah. So obviously it's a literary device to where it's basically them having a conversation, but it's actually not really having a conversation. It's just the person writing it put that in a conversation. Unlike the Bible, where Jesus Christ talking to the Father where they can, and they're in one nature, because Jesus Christ emptied himself of his deity to be here on earth so he could die for the sins of the world. Because you can't kill God.
Right, so he was born in 60 BC, died in 30 BC. So that's when he's writing.
Yeah. So you know how far Semiramis and Ishtar go back? Before Abraham. Abraham was a few generations after the Tower of
What
Babel.
exactly? I don't understand how that's even remotely relevant to what I'm saying.
Well, somebody writing almost 1,000 whatever years after the fact.
Yeah, but you just gave me Alexander
and
Hislop, who's
Semiramis
writing
having a
4,000
conversation.
years after the fact.
Well, it doesn't matter. Just a long time doesn't matter. But
Okay,
that they had a conversation. How would they know they
I
had the
want to get you on
conversation?
record.
How would they know? They're not an eyewitness. They're not an eyewitness. How'd they have the conversation?
Was Hislop an eyewitness?
What's that?
Was Hislop an eyewitness?
No, but he used a lot of
so it doesn't matter when he does it.
No, but he has footnotes. He has footnotes all throughout the Bible. He has actual freaking basis of evidence that he can report on where names changed from one god to the next. Where you have Bacchus. You know, how did Bacchus come around? Bacchus is just another name for the devil, if you wish, for Satan.
It's again throwing out a red herring. You just said, well, it doesn't matter.
I'm just using examples of people having different names.
You just
said
a
red herring. You don't need to trace that one. But Semiramis and Ishtar having conversations of no consequence to these conversations.
You just said that Hislop didn't have to be an eyewitness because he sourced himself, but Diodorus sourced himself. So now we're back to square one.
Who did Diodorus source himself with? Who did Diodorus source himself with back then?
No, don't act like you've been sitting up here giving a whole bunch of your sources. I've asked you for like 300 sources. You've given none. All right, so let's stop playing that game. You're clearly losing.
I'm lazy. I don't have to do it right this second. I don't have time to screw around with getting sources at the moment.
Because I do, and I'm doing the exact same thing that you are.
Oh, next time I'll come more prepared and I'll show you all the sources. Fair enough.
Yeah, most certainly. Most certainly.
Okay.
Now let's get another thing though. So you said,
and then you'll see I'm right.
Semiramis goes before the time of Abraham, right? But I'm actually looking at it right now. And Semiramis is actually believed to have been a ruler named Sammu-Rammat, who ruled from 811 to 806 BC. That's after David.
No, it was way before that. I don't know what source you're looking at. I don't know what source you're looking at.
Historians, I guess they're not true, but Alexander Hislop apparently is true.
From where?
Let's see. We're on worldhistory.org here, written by Joshua J.
Worldhistory.org. Okay. What year was that written?
What does that matter? Hislop is in the 1850s.
Yeah, and they were doing tons of excavation in the
and they're
Middle
doing
East
tons of excavation now.
Yeah, and they're finding tons. They're finding tons upon tons of evidences.
Okay, so then why did you ask for the year?
Why did what?
Why are you asking for the year then? Are you going to say, "Oh, well, it was written sometime later, and so therefore it's wrong"?
I was just curious. I was just curious how new it was. Just curious.
2014.
Yeah. Okay.
So Semiramis then is a ruler from the 800s. That's 200 years after David.
No, it was way before that.
Really? Give me a source.
Yeah.
I just gave you my source. Give me a source. The Bible, really? The Bible mentions Semiramis. Yeah. I'm interested. Where?
No, it doesn't mention Semiramis. It mentions.
Okay. So you sort of fib there. Okay. Who doesn't?
The other goddess of her. But if you look at that and you go, how do they find most of these archaeological finds in the Middle East?
Oh, you dig them up.
No, they use the Bible as a source for most of them, like Jericho, places like that. And they find all these idols in every single place that they've found. They found Jericho. You know that, right? That for years and years and years, they did, there's no Jericho.
And then you mean we found it?
What's that? No, they actually excavated it. And
we found it.
They actually excavated it. Yeah. Fact is, they still didn't believe. It's just like every time you have an atheist that says, "Oh yeah, well, this and that and the other, they can't find that," and then boom, there it comes. The
And
archaeologist
somehow
finds
that makes Semiramis born in the 2000s BC. I don't get where you're going with this. So
it's-
we always knew where Jericho was, and somebody dug it out of the dirt, and therefore,
okay, so
Semiramis
Tammuz
is
is
actually
mentioned.
living at the time when everybody agrees she lived. Am I hearing
Okay,
that correctly?
so Tammuz, which was the Nimrod, if you will, same name or same person, different name. Tammuz, Nimrod. When they
And how do you know that?
when they came out of Babylon after their 70 years, it says what? They wept, right? As they remembered Zion, right? So it was about Tammuz. Women wept over Tammuz because Tammuz was, if you look at it, was actually killed by Shem.
Okay, so what
He was
source
split.
do you
He was
have to
split in
demonstrate
parts.
that Tammuz is Nimrod?
Etymology of the history. I'll get all this for you. I'm just laying the groundwork for the next time they say, "Oh yeah, you're right."
Okay, so you said etymology. All right, I can check that right now because I
Names.
have a computer. So Tammuz etymology. Let's go ahead and look that up. The name Tammuz seems to have been derived from the Akkadian Tamuzi, based on the early Sumerian Damuzid, which means the flawless young. All right.
Okay.
So
Look up Nimrod.
let's go Nimrod.
Which he was a
etymology.
hunter of men, was he not? Which was not a good term.
Nimrod means great hunter. Okay,
Yes.
so I'm just curious. If I said that somebody was mighty and young, would you get from those words that that person was a
Great
great
hunter?
hunter?
I'd say he was mighty. He was mighty
Okay,
before the Lord too, wasn't
so
he?
for example, if when Randy Moss was drafted and I said he was mighty and young,
not
you
just
would
great
conclude that
hunter,
he was
not just great
shooting
hunter. You need
moose
to
out
do
in Alaska.
the whole verse of what it says. He was a mighty hunter in front of the Lord. Same thing.
So then if I said Tim Tebow when he was drafted, he's Christian. If I said Tim Tebow was mighty before the Lord, you would conclude that he was no. Actually, that doesn't even matter because it was the young and mighty thing. So if I
You're
said that
totally
Tim
going
Tebow
off.
was young and
That's
mighty,
really bad. That's a
if
very
I said
bad
Tim
analogy.
Tebow was young and mighty, you would conclude that he was out in Alaska hunting bison. Am I hearing that correctly?
Not necessarily, but in the context of the
young and mighty.
so
are the same
you're
thing,
totally
right?
disregarding biblical context of how Nimrod was described. You didn't read the whole chapter. You just read mighty hunter.
No, I'm reading an
just by going to a
etymology.
Google thing.
I'm reading the actual etymology of the word. Has nothing
Yeah.
to do
Well,
with.
if you look at the Bible, it has the etymology of the word right there of his name. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, which means that he didn't like the Lord, and he was a mighty hunter of men, not of animals and beasts. But he did tame the animals and beasts. That's where we got cheetahs from. It's all right. But the other side of it is Tammuz was just after so many thousand years of transmission of the name of Nimrod into whoever the son of, as the son Tammuz was the son of, who the name changed to, went from Ishtar or Semiramis to Ishtar. Yeah. Son of Ishtar, I believe.
So Tammuz to Nimrod to Semiramis to Ishtar.
Yeah, and they're all the same people.
Even though one of them's a chick. Actually, two of them.
No, you know what I'm saying when I say they're the same people is what we mentioned before. You have Tammuz and Nimrod, same person, different names.
Oh,
Ishtar and Semiramis,
I'm sure they are. And I'm
same
sure that my
person,
Pelicans
different names. As the languages changed, accents came in. So not all language was understood by other people. That's why they had translators and things later on, right? So things get mixed up.
If it was due to a language change, then how come Tammuz is actually a word used to this day in the Hebrew language to describe one of their
it's
names?
in the Bible. Because it's in the Bible. If you notice, most
so
words
Nimrod, though.
of all.
So why do they use these different names?
People
Why
call
doesn't the
Nimrod.
Bible say, "Hey, this name that we use and this name that we use are actually the same people"? They do it with everyone else, like when
Totally
Jethro and
right? Your logic is so far off. Because the names change just with the goddesses and gods. Okay, so you can have Woden as Zeus, and then you can have Thor as god of thunder. That would translate to what which Greek god? and then on to the Roman god. That's just all they did. Is transverse.
Actually, the god of thunder and lightning would actually be Zeus, which is just a perfect way to describe how you keep saying they're all the same, but they're not the same, because Thor and Odin are both qualities.
Well, if you want to go back to Prometheus, you can, because they also worship, they don't really worship Prometheus, but they worship the god of gods, which was Prometheus. And then you had the other guy that ate all the gods, and then he belched them all up. It's just, there's stories after stories in Greek and Roman mythology about baloney.
So many different things together, though. They're like not the same thing at all. Like
they aren't.
For some reason, now you're on Cronus and his eating of his children. And I guess that is supposed to be the same person as Prometheus, who isn't even actually like a full god.
Well, he's supposed to be the originator, is he not? He's supposed to be the creator, right?
Prometheus? No, he is not.
No?
No, he is not. Prometheus is the guy who brought fire to the planet. And then he gets punished for bringing fire to the planet because Zeus didn't want the humans to have... Like, I'm sorry, guy. I'm really not trying to be mean, but you don't know anything about mythology.
So Zeus, the Greek god, banished Prometheus because he didn't want fire on the earth. Okay, great. So if you translate that back to before Greek mythology, who would those be?
You can't. It's a Greek story. It didn't exist before Greek mythology. Oh my goodness! All right,
I'll tell you what.
I've been on
this. Telling me that the Roman gods didn't come from the Greek gods. So you're telling me that the Roman gods didn't come from the Greek gods?
Hang on. Here's what I'm going to do. Okay. You said you wanted to debate this. Let's do it. Get all your sources together. Let's do a formal debate.
Yep.
But I want to.
I'm just sitting here casually on a freaking. I'm sitting here casually on a Thursday, just I didn't prepare for this, but then when I heard you guys going on about Easter, now it figures that the guy's a Roman Catholic, so no kidding.
Yeah. So, drop a comment on here whenever you feel you are. I just want to shut this down.
Not a problem.
Like talking about this for an hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll do a full-on formal debate. I'll get somebody to moderate, probably Jamie Russell, because he's the only guy who I can get to moderate these days.
Fair enough.
But yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, sounds good. All right.
All right, awesome. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no problem. It was good. Yeah, sorry I mixed up. It's just, I'm just having a lazy, Thursday, just doing nothing. And wasn't prepared to come out and have all that, but I got other stuff on my plate, so.
No, you're good. I'm sure the last hour this was more exciting than the first, so I appreciate it.
Oh, well, I'm glad I could add to it. But anyway, good chatting.
Absolutely. You have a good rest of your day, man.
All right, thanks. Bye.
All right, so I am actually hopping off here because we're about 2 hours and 20 minutes in, but I guess we'll probably have, if we get that set up here, a debate on the issue you just heard here probably soon. I'll probably end up being on this channel, actually, because a lot of the people who host these smaller kinds of debates, I am not interested in associating with, and I'm sure Alex probably not interested in associating with them either. But nonetheless, appreciate y'all being here. If you liked this video, please remember to like and share the video and consider subscribing, hitting that bell if you have not done so. The bell lets you get notified of every time we go live and all that good nature-y kind of stuff. I'm trying to go through this pretty quickly because I really just I'm trying to get off. I have another show on my other channel that I'm going to do here soon. I don't know how soon. Probably going to push it off later than I was intending. But nonetheless, appreciate you guys all for being here. Please remember to share this to all the different people you associate with. That's all I got. I'm out. I appreciate y'all. Lord wills and Terry's. We'll see you here soon.